Good evening. Welcome to this evening's broadcast on Maconi Entertainment, the Sim Racers for Mental Health Daytona 500. My name is Joey Atterbury, and joining me in the booth tonight is Chris Hunneball and Ryan Bauer producing, with the camera angles being provided by Dougie Beard. Tonight we'll be seeing the next gens at Daytona for 500 miles in support of a great cause. Daytona is a legendary track, and anything can and will happen on these high banks. Drafting is key, and to finding victory lane here, expect to see cars teaming up to try to push themselves towards the front. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Daytona and some of the action that we're going to be seeing tonight with these next-gen cars?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the pre-show that most people are going to be very familiar with Daytona, but we're in Daytona Beach, Florida, on a 2.5-mile speedway that, anyone who's a fan of oval racing is probably no stranger to at this point. In the stadium out there, they can do just over 100,000 fans at 101,500. That's a lot of people there. This self-proclaimed World Center of Racing, it opened in 1959, and then, they added the road course in 1966. The tri-oval stuff that we'll be racing tonight is actually going to feature some 18 degrees of banking as the cars pass by the start, and up to 31 degrees in the corners, which I've been told can feel quite slow, but in reality, they can actually fit up to 4 cars side by side. So I'm hoping to see a little bit of excitement there. Me, coming from the GT side of racing, is a little nervous about the proximity of these cars. It's going to be exciting.
Well, you're going to be in for a show indeed, especially with the bump drafting and how close they have to race. I mentioned it, we are in the next-gen cars. 200 laps or 500 miles as we know it here at Daytona. Everybody has one fast repair to them. That means that if they take significant damage, they can come down to pit road, get that fast repair, immediately get back out on the track and racing. But if you use up that fast repair, collect damage, you got to come down, get it served at a time penalty basically as the crew hops over the wall and gets it fixed. 3 green-white-checkered attempts later tonight, and we'll get into those if we need them. Consider kind of like a bonus overtime if needed to get this race finished, and everybody is on a fixed setup out on the racetrack. So all of these cars will be pretty identical in terms of performance. It's going to be about kind of who manages the air, manages the drafting the best out on the racetrack. And right now we actually have qualifying going on. Now, qualifying is only 5 minutes long. It's the best of your 2 laps, and it is solo qualifying, so nobody's going to be drafting together out there. It's just which car can do the best lap time. And Chris, here at Daytona, it is completely flat out. It's about minimizing the distance around.
Yeah, so being an oval like this and no drafts, it's going to be very interesting because, like you said, fixed setups. Probably my favorite version of racing, because then it just comes down to the driver and overall skill and knowledge of, the racecraft. So it's going to be a very exciting way to watch racing tonight, just because, no one's going to have that magic setup that they just happen to find or make for themselves that really, comes along with their driving style and really helps them around this course.
Getting on board with a few of these runners here. This is the number 7 of Glenn Fagan, currently provisionally 11th. See if they improve it all in that second lap. They do, but not improving on the timesheet. Staying 11th there, lap number 2. And there we have Scott Ricard in the 0-5 car coming out of turn number 5. Currently provisional 26th on the board. Now, a lot of these times are going to be changing just as racers complete their second lap or even put a time on the board. So you're going to see a lot of shuffling on that timing and scoring screen.
Now, there might be a question out there whether or not they can dip down into the yellow, a la Williams Racing, if you guys did happen to catch any of the Daytona action for GT cars out there. But apparently they are in qualifying, so that's not a problem here, which is very, very good. Could actually end up helping the times. We'll see who utilizes that the best.
Indeed, it can. I mentioned it's all about running the shortest distance around Daytona, and that often means cutting below that yellow line. Looks like Dustin Novoa maybe underfilled the car right there, was wiggling it around trying to get enough out of it. And I think he pulled the old DW there and went from 6th to 1st. You know, no engine to inspect after that one. And with that, we are going to have our starting grid. Looks like the number 35 of our Aaron Brown out there, our pole sitter. Joining him on the front row is going to be David Grantham. Emerson Arden there in the 3rd place position. And then here in 4th, we have Thomas Stewart. Scott Ricard rounding out the top 5. And here in 6th, we have Anthony English. Alec Karen 7th. Spencer Torrance in 8th. Chad Mikos 9th. And Thomas Frisch there in the 10th place. 11th on back, go to you, Chris, for 11th through 20th.
At 11, we've got Philip Resch over there. And then at number 12, Nick Gardiner. Sorry if I mess up any names here. On 13th, we have Brady Wagoner. Tyler J. Graff is sitting on 14th. At 15th, we have Dustin Novoa. 16th is Brian Young. Creighton Carter is at number 17. Adam Jocelyn at 18. Russell Peets at number 19. And then number 20 here, we have Curtis Yancey.
And here in 21st spot, we got Ken Zeems, followed up with Alexander Pelican. Isaiah Dupree in 23rd. Andrew Duncan 24th. Glenn Fagan in 25th. Jamie Smith 26th. Evan Lambert in the 27th position. Samuel Turkett 28th. Chris Mayo 29th. And Drew Bernardi in the 30th position.
And then to round off the last of them, that we have Scott Wilkerson at number 31, Caleb Carter at number 32, Brian Kidda at 33, Steve Rada at 34, Robert Smith sitting at 35, Josh A. Stiles at 36, Blake Trawick at 37, Timothy Groff, Edgar Irby at 39, Quincy Carter at 40, and 41, we have Thomas Nadeau.
Yeah, we have 41 cars here at Daytona, and I was looking at this pre-race. Chris, 78 degrees ambient, but 130 degrees on the track, and doesn't matter if you're GT racing or oval racing, 130 is warm and toasty as a track surface.
Yeah, that's a little spicy down there to mess up your rubber and really throw a wrench in your strategy there. That's going to be interesting.
Now, the cars are rolling off on the pace lap here. We're only going to get one pace lap here since it is a 2.5-mile super speedway, but I was noticing something here in qualifying. Our pole sitter in the number 35, 50.062. Joining him, 50.063, only 1/1000th of a second separating our top two. And I know they're a fixed setup, but that is as close as it can get here on iRacing.
Yeah, there is no closer, like you're saying. And that's just going to go and show us that during this race, it's going to be close quarters. Everyone's equal. It comes down to just that driver skill, or maybe that little bit of knowledge that you know, just something a little bit extra over the guy that's, drafting you, trying to pass you. We'll see here.
Well, qualifying is a very different animal in comparison to the race that we are about to see, especially with 41 cars. And I have a feeling that things are going to get busy very quickly out there. And whenever you put 41 cars here at Daytona, things get stacked up. And I wonder when we will see our first yellow flag. And if I was going to ask you to pull out your crystal ball there, when do you think we're going to see our first yellow? What lap? What's the lap count?
Well, I think I'm hoping, I guess I'll rephrase that. I'm hoping that people are going to stay a little bit conservative on that lead lap there and maybe even get up to around 5 to 10. So I'd say somewhere between 10 and 15 we might see something going on, because that's when people start to say, okay, my tires are ready, I'm feeling a little confident. Maybe they saw a little mistake from another driver.
We already got a wreck going on the racetrack. We got 2 cars spun down into the apron before turn number 1, but we actually stayed green on the racetrack because they spun off of the racing surface. They're not a hazard to everybody else. And looks like we got a 3-car breakaway up front. That's Aaron Brown, Emerson Arden, and also Scott Ricard in that top 3 cars. And then you also have David Grantham and Chad Mikos there, kind of teamed up and joining that pack, making it front 5 now.
Apparently, I should send this magic 8-ball back to Amazon because it did not help me in that prediction whatsoever.
No, it's all good, but we got 400 and, well, I guess we should say about 478 and a half more miles since they did lap number 1 complete here. Number 35, your pole sitter, continues to lead the way out front. Got the 57 chasing him, as well as the 05, the 60, and the 25 making up that pack of front 5. And then just a little bit further back from this pack is kind of the rest of the field as we see them all zoom by on the back straightaway. Actually really impressed that this field is kind of thinned out to single file racing. Not a whole lot of side-by-side. Very, very clean so far.
Yeah, it does seem like
everyone's... I'm sorry, we got a yellow flag on the racetrack.
The commentator's curse strikes again.
I think it's Glenn Fagan back here in the number 7. In turn 3, turn 4, not exactly sure what happened. Gonna take a look at this replay here. And I think Glenn was just in the middle of a little bit of a draft pack here, coming off of turn 2. Everything seemed fine, but had a few little connection issues, and I'm not sure exactly what happened after that.
Yeah, so there's an interesting thing that happens with sim racing where connection issues, you could be driving perfectly fine, but a connection issue happens and then you make contact and it really throws off your race.
Yeah, we're used to seeing connection issues and blinking and netcode contact and stuff like that, and he definitely seemed to blink out, and then when he came back, he was already spun around and on the racing surface, and that is what brought out the yellow flag. So that was the number 7 of Glenn Fagan down there. He's currently on pit road trying to get it all fixed up and stay on the lead lap, and looks like we didn't make it to lap 10 or 15, and it was just as I was saying, that it was getting pretty clean out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's that commentator's curse is coming back, and it seems to strike with no mercy whatsoever. So as long as we're talking about clean racing, something is always going to happen there. You know, connection issues do happen. It's interesting, and it's probably one of the most frightening things to see if you're a car following someone that does connect or disappear and reappear, and you're not sure exactly where they are, and it can kind of cause you to hit the brakes or, well, hit them in a worst case scenario. But yeah, this is one of those times where we unfortunately talked about the action, calling out how it's safe, and then lo and behold, there it went.
Yeah, and it's not the last time we're going to see a yellow flag here, and especially with 3 green-white checkers later in the race. But gonna get them all stacked back up here, and we're gonna see long pace car laps here. Still got the lights on here on the pace car, I believe. So I'm gonna take a quick commercial break and be right back here with the restart and a little bit more action for the SimRacers4 Mental Health Daytona 500.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
We are here at Daytona for 500 miles in these next gens for a great cause. I mentioned it, SimRacers4MentalHealth. And if you want to learn more, go ahead and join the SimRacers4MentalHealth Discord or their Facebook page. Go ahead, join them, learn more about everything that they do and the great cause that they support. And always great to be out here with your friends, helping support a great cause, especially when we got still 38 cars on the racetrack and Barney's got that green flag in his hand. Aaron Brown is loud on the gas pedal and we are racing again here at Daytona. Pretty impressive to watch these cars get all the way up to speed, and they're doing over 190 miles an hour in this draft train. And you see the lower lane really starting to form up here, still led out front by Aaron Brown. Scott Ricard there in the second place and starting to separate themselves just a little bit, but we're seeing the draft train really start to form down low now, Chris.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about safety cars that I personally do like is bunching up the cars again. Because as they spread out some more and they get in the single file, you kind of have to wait and see what's going to happen. So when they slow them down, group them back up again, get them all close and comfortable with each other again, it kind of makes the racing exciting again, just to throw a little wrench in their gears, And I just like the overall bunching of them again.
Yeah, it definitely gives more passing opportunities and more opportunities to race side by side when you have those breaks in the racing and then stack them up 2x2 for the restarts. And what I'm noticing here is it's actually a pretty good and mellow line out front, down low for probably 15 cars or so. We see a little bit of two wide racing with the 83, that's Philip Resch, as well as the 54 of Thomas Frisch there in the outside lane. They're just kind of hanging out as the only two-car tandem, but this pack really goes all the way back, double checking here, all the way back to 23rd place, I believe. Got to search for 24th, Chris Mayo, who's got a secondary pack all the way back there that's formed up in a single file line. Now, Chris, I know that you are new to oval racing and to super speedway racing. What these competitors are doing is purposely separating themselves from that group up front. They're saying, you know what? I'm going to hang out back here in a little bit more calm of a line. You guys are getting too sketchy out there, and when you wreck, you're going to collect everybody who's innocent.
That's an interesting piece because GT racing also gets spread out, but spread out in a much different way. So you'll have 2 or 3 cars, not a group of 8 to 10 cars like we're seeing here. And that's a really interesting strategy because, you know, it is iRacing. We just talked about the connection issues. You never know when someone's just going to spin off and then all of a sudden 10-car pileup happens and this group that's here in the back out here just kind of weaves in and out and can get through without even spinning out.
Yeah, they would definitely get hard on the brakes here, but it looks like Aaron Brown and Scott Ricard, they got a pretty good thing going out front right now. Whenever they get somebody close up behind, the 05 goes up and gives the 35 a pretty big shove. And now I'm calling it the 35. He does have the old Kyle Busch 18 paint scheme on out front, but that is Aaron Brown in the number 35 car out front being pushed by the 05. And I wonder if this is going to be a regular theme here, seeing these two work together. But it looks like this high line is starting to form up a little bit more here. I believe that's the 83 Philip Resch out front, 54 of Thomas Frisch behind him, and now he's being joined by the 17 of Samuel Turquette, as well as the 16 of Nick Gardner. It's finally starting to form up a little bit. And Chris, how the aerodynamics work in these cars, basically, if you can get a longer line form, you have a better, longer aerodynamic shape, and you can have a higher top speed. So the more friends you have, the better off you are.
You know, it's kind of funny because I'm sitting here thinking, you know, when you're at the grocery store and that other line opens, like another teller says, oh, we're open on 8 or whatever, and then a bunch of the people that are behind you go into that other line, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I was out front. What are you doing getting ahead of me over here? It kind of reminds me of that situation where it's like, wait a minute, this inside line's the line you're supposed to be on. Get back in your place back there, you know?
Well, it's all in the ebb and flow that we're going to see as the 17 makes a big move down to the inside in front of the 98. Pretty aggressive there, riding on board with the 57 Emerson Arden here looking back out at that. And you're going to see the top line prevail down the straightaways and carry more momentum, while the lower line prevails through the corners here just because they have a shorter distance. They tend to be a little bit faster through turns 1 and 2, as well as 3 and 4, while the outside lane is able to carry the top speed down the straightaways. But I mentioned it's all about having your friends out there, because the more friends you have, the faster you're going to go. And that's what we're seeing. Only 2 friends on the outside. They're starting to sink back just a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like they weren't getting the speed that they were hoping to get taking that outside line, so a bunch of them are just compacted back into that inner line there.
And they're coming by the first lapped car of the day. Looks like this might be Evan Lambert up there. Oh no, I believe having some more blinking issues, and that is never what you want to see. As the pack is going through this, you're always wondering when and where are they going to reappear, and still yet to be back out on the racetrack. Always a sketchy feeling, Chris.
Yeah, where did that car end up going? Because it disappeared, and I didn't personally see it come back ever.
No, and I do see Anthony English here disconnected, but he disconnected a little while ago in the 42, so I'm not going to worry too much about it because we are still green flag racing here. Lap number 14, now 15 of 200. Mentioned at 500 miles that these competitors are going to be doing tonight. And I'm actually very happy to see what they're doing out on the racetrack. And they're being pretty organized. They're getting green flag laps done, because if they don't do this, this could definitely drag on for quite some time out here, Chris.
Yeah, everyone's being very, very, I guess I would say, courteous and kind of following the racecraft very to the book, if you will. And it's making it so that they're just knocking the laps down, able to get them, you know, ticked off so that they can hopefully have minimal incidents and minimal slowdowns.
Well, it is all about making it till the very end here, and you see only 16 of 200 and got a very, very long ways to go here. And if you start racing too aggressively, you're just slowing everybody else down as well. So my opinion is a good strategy. And not only that, but you get a good rhythm out there. You kind of feel what the car is doing. You get a full fuel stint underneath you. And that way, for the pit stops, you can say, all right, do I need a little bit of tire pressure here? Do I need to tighten it up? Does it need a little bit more turn? And even though they are fixed setups, you can play with a few little things to help you, including brake bias, which we're going to talk about when and if they have to do a green flag pit stop, Chris, as looks like a little bit of shuffling here as cars are just trying to sort themselves out.
That's an interesting strategy. Is there, like we said earlier, I'm a little bit of a newbie to oval racing. What is the overall intent when they make those big sweeping moves onto the inside of the track here?
Oh, that is just purely an avoidance. You know, the 17 came down and, you know, wasn't sure if the 17 was going to call it clear. And I've been watching the 17 here, which is Samuel Turquette, and he's kind of bobbing and weaving a little bit between the lanes. I wonder if he's dealing with a loose race car. Yeah, I don't blame some of these cars for avoiding action, kind of wondering what the 17 is doing while he's wandering around the track.
Yeah, that makes sense. In my world of GT racing, you know, you have a little bit more time, it would seem, because, you know, the tracks are slower. You're most of the time your speed is going to be controlled by chicanes and big sweeping turns and stuff. But here, 190 miles an hour, you don't have a lot of time to react. So if you see something that you think is fishy, yeah, get out of the way, right?
Absolutely, because if you get collected in it, the damage is not usually just a spin. It is heavy contact and into the wall you go, which you don't want to see, especially early on. You don't want to have to use that fast repair at all. You want to keep it clean out there. And Scott Ricard continues to push Aaron Brown. We're riding on board here with Thomas Frisch, who finds himself all the way back here. Let's see here, about, what is he, 10th place in line, but you see the vision when you get tucked up behind the car in front of you. Can't really see much with that big spoiler in the way.
Yeah, the overall view from just being parked right behind someone, you're basically just looking at their tail end, almost seeing nothing. Yeah, here's a great example of it, where you try to peek out here and there, but you want to keep your draft, so you tuck back in and just kind of get a little bit of information. Like right here, who are we looking at? Is this like 8th place? I can't really even tell.
Curtis Yancey in the 7th place position we're riding along.
So 7th place, and only every once in a while. Sometimes when you're on the big banks, you can see 1st place and 2nd place, but generally speaking, you're just looking at that pretty paint on the back of the car in front of you.
And you're just trying to keep it as consistent as possible out there and try to ride that yellow line. Try not to make too many moves left or right. And actually, the key to drafting is to be as close to the partner as possible without actually pushing them. Now, if you bump draft them, sure, you can get hooked up and gain a ton of momentum. But if you're looking for multiple cars in a line, you technically don't want to be bumping each other. You just want to be as close as possible. As we see another lap car have another connection issue right in front of the field.
Those, you know, we talked about how sketchy it is when you see a car disappear and reappear. Now, it's even worse when the car disappears and you're like, where did it go? It's not coming back. Is it going to appear right in front of me? You know, you get into that little mental game where you're kind of playing with yourself like, I don't know when it's going to come back. What's going to happen? There it is. Came back again right there. That's nerve-wracking right there.
The 30 came back out onto the racetrack after blinking out for a whole half a lap there. That's the number 30 of Timothy Groff as he blinks out again.
Goodbye.
Several connection issues going on with this race so far, but we're going to keep it focused up front because it has been pretty good racing. We're seeing side by side here with Samuel Turquette in that 17. I mentioned that he's been wandering a little bit on the racetrack, and he currently finds himself in that second groove up top, riding on board with a 71 of, let's see here, this is Creighton Carter, as I think these cars are lined up underneath, and they're going to take advantage of the 17 not having any friends helping him up top.
You can just see how his speed just scrubbed off instantly. They passed him like he was in the wrong gear almost.
And that is exactly what happens here at Daytona. A little bit of wobbly out of this line here coming out of turn 4, but looks like they get it all sorted out here, and the 17 makes another big swerve back down into line. Car down on the apron here, getting back up to speed, but still out front. Aaron Brown, Scott Ricard, Chad Mikos there in the 25, hanging out in the 3rd place position. Spencer Torrance in the 4th place, and Emerson Arden rounding out your current top 5 as they go by. Lapped car here. Let's see here. Who is that up top? That looks to be Edgar Uribe down there in the 34th position, letting leaders by.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, if you know you're having connection issues, because, you know, a lot of the time the person who is experiencing the issues, their race is going perfectly fine for them. You know, if you start to have connection issues in a sim racing environment, I think it behooves you to kind of sit back and just be a participant in the race and not really try to push too much or impact the other players on the field too badly.
Agreed, and it's all about that awareness of knowing what's going on around you, and if the lead pack is coming up and you know you can't do anything about it, there's no point in blocking or fighting them. And as we saw there, Edgar did a great job of letting that lead pack by and then cutting back down when it was clean and safe to do so, rejoining. Great job of sportsmanship, and it's still the 35 out front, just clicking off laps here. And looking at timing and scoring, this has become a lead pack of 10 cars, all the way down to Thomas Frisch is the last one in line in that number 54 machine here. We're riding on board with him going down the back straightaway, and you see here he gets close to the 83 in front of him, but doesn't actually push him. He's plenty content just to click off these laps and ride in the back and actually do a little bit of fuel saving when you're back here, Chris. And you might not think that fuel saving does a whole lot when we're going to see a yellow flag eventually. However, when you do have to come down and take that pit stop, that just means that you've saved more gas. That means less gas to put in the car, quicker pit stop.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy that has to go into the way you race in the beginning of a long event like this. You know, it's not worth it to push past your limit or to push up to a point where you get yourself in trouble. There's 175-ish laps yet, 174 laps still to go. That's so much racing that you may as well, like you said, tuck in, click off the laps, just make sure that you stay nice and safe. And maybe you can find a couple of mistakes or a good opportunity that you can bank on later.
It is a very, very long race that these competitors have signed up for and are doing a great job of clicking off the laps. And one thing that we mentioned earlier is going to be these pit stops, Chris. So if memory serves me correct, these cars make it about 38 to 40 laps on a full tank of gas under green flag conditions. Now, working lap 27, so we're about 10 laps away from seeing these green flag pit stops, and it has to be pretty well organized coming down pit road, because if the person behind you doesn't know it or uses the same brake marker, it's easy to cause a wreck when you're even trying to get slowed down.
Coming from 190 to 30 and then eventually to a stop, it's just, there's a lot that can go wrong. In sim racing and racing in general is a lot about muscle memory. And while it's great to have the muscle memory going around the track, around repeated just all day, you get into that mode where like you almost cramp up a little bit. You almost get to the point where you're like stiff. So any change in what you've been doing now throws your muscles off and throws your mental acuity off a little bit, just enough for you to make that mistake. So they have to focus a lot when they start coming into the pits here.
It is, and it's just introducing a variable out there. Is you got to be on top of your game. It's no good to throw away positions with such an easy thing of stopping in your box, and if you overshoot it, you're just giving away free time out there. And I want to actually go and right on board with the 0-5 here of Scott Ricard, because he's been one of the more aggressive cars in terms of going up there and pushing the car in front of him. And let's just go ahead right on board here with the 0-5 for a lap. Chris, something that I'm seeing right out front here crossing start finish is a group of about 5 cars. Now, they are on the lead lap. This goes back to 31st place Drew Bernardi. Then you got Caleb Carter, Alec Karen, Andrew Duncan, Thomas Stewart. But this lead group is going much, much faster, and they're going to overtake this group of 5 cars. But we're going to see how well organized they stay, if they go down to the bottom, if they go down to the top. Looks like one car is going up top, but the main train is staying down below. Gonna be interesting here.
The communication wasn't accepted on that one. He's like, okay, let's go to the top, guys, and let these front guys pass. And the rest of the train just went, nah, we're fine.
Well, now it's typical courtesy in super speedway racing. Well, usually lapped cars go high, but these cars are not lapped cars, so they're technically free to race to stay on the lead lap. But Aaron Brown just has such a head of steam. They're so much more well organized here, and it looks like this group of now 4 cars is going to move to the top side of the racetrack, let this lead lap by. Looks like one of them's going to try to stay down low, block the leaders, move up at the last second there. I believe, let's see here, that was the 0-4, I think it was, as, ooh, had a big wiggle out of our leader, Aaron Brown, coming up out of turn 4. I'm not sure if that was a bad push from Scott Ricard or just a big loose moment here. We'll have to take a look and see exactly what happened, but that pushes the 0-5 up into no man's land in the high groove. And it looks like the 0-5 with no room there to go. Gonna fall all the way back, still falling 7th place, has nowhere to get in line right now. Just hanging out, and that was one of our front runners, Scott Ricard there, running 2nd place all race, trying to be super respectful and trying to find a place to tuck back in line. Finally gets back into the 8th place there. And Chris, it shows you one little mistake, you step out of line, you lose your spot in that, what'd you call it, the checkout queue, and look at that. You're way in the back.
He thought there was a register open on the right there, and apparently that employee was off work already, not opening a register. But technically it wasn't really his mistake. He just kind of, he ended up having the problem with the lead lap car there, the 18, coming back onto the track, so he was side by side with him. But like you said earlier, he had no buddies to keep the speed up, so he just kept falling and falling and falling as they just kept moving on past him.
Well, yeah, it was definitely the 35 that got loose up out of 4, and I don't know if it was from a push, but when he came back out on the racetrack, yeah, it just kind of shoved the 0-5 up into the high groove. And you're right, he didn't have any buddies there to help, but all is not lost for that 0-5. He is back in line, I mentioned, back in the 8th place, and still a part of this lead pack as we're still racing under green flag conditions, lap 35 of 200 here. Now, Chris, I mentioned that pit window, usually around 38 to 40 laps here, and starting to approach that number. This lead pack is 10 cars deep plus a few lap cars. It has to be well organized coming down to pit road.
Yeah, there's an interesting fact here where there's obviously going to be zero variance in pit crew. So everyone's pretty much going to have the same pit speed. It's all going to be based on their entry to the pit, how well they stop in their brake point to get the actual stuff started, and then just getting back onto the racetrack again. So it's all going to be about the driver.
In laps plus the stop and including the out lap is very important. And not only that, but when you come back out on the racetrack, you got to make sure you're out there with a group, because if you don't get paired up with a group, you're just kind of sitting duck, turning laps much slower all by yourself. So yeah, it's probably about 3 laps in combination here of coming down to pit road, getting the stop done, and then also the out lap, getting up to speed, and how quickly you're back up to speed in that pack. And gonna see things get shuffled up for sure. Whenever we have green flag stops at a super speedway, things get spread out, and I see 3 distinct packs. We see a pack of 10 cars running, or I should say 10 lead lap cars running up front. Then we have a pack of about 6 or 7 lead lap cars running in the second group, and then we have another third pack back here that's a little bit more strung out of about, call it a handful of cars there for the 17th to 22nd position. But I tell you what, if you're in the front pack and you don't stop on your marks and mess up that in-lap, out-lap that we're talking about, you can find yourself easily shuffled all the way back into the second or even third pack.
Yeah, and with the duration of time that we have left in this race, if that happens to you a couple times, you're no longer in the race.
Well, and if you're already back into one of these further down positions and you don't hit your marks and you come out all by yourself, you can find yourself in no man's land and literally just off the pace out there with no drafting partners, and there's nothing you can do. It's just kind of like you're treading water and everybody else is swimming, or even better, in a motorboat.
That frustration is all I can think about at that point. You're kind of hoping and praying that someone at some point makes maybe a mistake so they can collect you up again and you can get a little bit of a group started. But it feels like that one guy standing off in the corner of the party where he's like, oh, everyone's having a good time. I guess I'll just wait over here until someone comes and talks to me.
Continues to be Aaron Brown out front, Chad Mikos in second place now, Spencer Torrance in third in that number 10 machine, Emerson Arden fourth place, and Nick Gardiner rounding out your top 5 currently. Other than that one early yellow flag, had a pretty clean race so far here for this SimRacers for Mental Health 500-mile event at Daytona. And crossing over, I should say, to lap 40 of 200. Now, Chris, these competitors, I hear them on the radio. They're starting to talk to each other. I believe the pit window is really going to start to open up here. I hear Aaron Brown on the radio, which is the leader. I also hear Emerson Arden on the radio. I believe they're trying to organize and say, hey, you know what? Everybody, be aware, yellow flag stops, or I shouldn't say yellow flag, but pit stops are coming.
That's an interesting thing. So at what point are the other competitors, so you're working with them in the beginning of the race, into the middle, into the, 75% time, what's the moment where you're like, okay, now it's race time and we are no longer working together? When's that little moment?
It's going to be a ways down the road here, probably 20 laps to go or so. And watching, having problems with the 17, that was the 17, Samuel Turquette, who's been a little wiggly out on the racetrack, finds himself wagging his car down to pit road here. And actually going to take a look, see if anybody was speeding down to pit road. I don't see any black flags right now, but our leader, Aaron, let's see here, he locked him up pretty heavy coming down pit road. Surprised he got it woed all the way up, but Chad Mikos is our current leader out on the racetrack coming off of turn 4. See how much further the rest of these competitors decide to push it, and looks like one more time around for this lead group of cars.
I'm not normally one to mess with the gas tank. I don't know. I always, for some reason, stay conservative on it, no matter what. I understand, obviously, it shows you the amount in there, but you're like, what if something was to happen and I was to waste a bunch of extra gas and I was so close in my calculation that I end up having to push myself back, you know? Obviously, you don't push yourself in these games, but yeah, what if you just barely creeping back in and you can't quite make it there and you got to get a tow? That's nerve-wracking.
Well, and here comes the rest of the field down to pit road, hard on the brakes as we see 3 and even 4 wide entering pit road. Looks like all of the competitors do get it slowed up. Now, that's only the first part. You gotta find your pit box, stop on your marks, don't get too far in, as I've already seen 2 cars now have overshot their marks, and take a full tank of fuel, probably 4 fresh tires, since you got the time to do it. Looks like some of these cars might be taking 2, not most of them taking 4 out there. And here we see, I believe here we got this is the 35 of Aaron Brown, who was the leader before the stops, has Curtis Yancey in the 51 pushing him. But here we see the cars coming out onto pit road, and if you ask me, Chris, I think that these cars are actually going to be able to leapfrog Aaron Brown if he doesn't have the momentum on the back straightaway. Looks like, yes, there will be probably 2 cars out in front of him. That's going to be Chad Mikos and Scott Ricard.
That is a nerve-wracking re-entry if I've ever seen one. You're flying by these cars at 200 miles an hour, just under, and you never know. They're just gonna join back in on the race, and you've got to figure out how to match speed, get your group back together, and get everyone back up to pace. That's an interesting thing to see right there.
Well, yeah, the rules here at Daytona is you have to stay on the apron through turns 1 and 2 if you were exiting pit lane, and then once you are on the back straightaway, you merge up onto the racetrack. So that's when the competitors know there's going to be cars merging up onto the racetrack. But ultimately, it was Chad Mikos out front right now, and I'm looking. What happened to Scott Ricard back here? Looks like he didn't get up to speed, but it is Aaron Brown in your second place position, and Chad Mikos is actually up there being the second car in line behind Isaiah Dupree. Now, this is interesting. I did not catch this, but looks like Chad Mikos is probably the only car that killed it on the pit stop right now, and he's got such a lead that he's actually drafting the only car that's on the lead lap in front of him, trying to escape from the rest of the pack.
That's a massive advantage right there. That was really well executed and could end up really helping him. Now, we are creeping up on about 25% of the race completed at this point, so there's still a lot to do, but that could really change his outcome.
I think it's only a matter of time, though, because we see here Aaron Brown being pushed by Curtis Yancey. And so I think that this pack of 4 back here is, in fact, going to catch him. And that's Thomas Frisch in the 54, just a little bit out of place. He's third in line, but 1 lap down. Scott Ricard there finds himself there. 4th place. So Scott Ricard did a good job on those pit stops to work his way up a few positions. If we remember, Scott was running P2 there, got shuffled out of that low groove, found himself in 8th place. Now back up into the 4th place position, working lap 46 of 200 here. And Chris, I mentioned it before the pit stops, these green flag stops tend to spread things out a little bit, and now these trains that, or I should say packs that were 10 or 15 cars, now only groups of 4 or 5 cars apiece.
Yeah, it looks like the pack that we're staring at right now is going to catch up again, and we'll probably end up with another large pack here. But yeah, it's definitely a lot more spread out. 2, 3 cars, individuals, just kind of strewn about at this point.
And when that happens, we often see less and less opportunities for a yellow flag, because here in iRacing, the car that spins has to be on the racing surface at a hazard of someone coming up here. So as things get spread out, the less and less opportunity for a yellow flag. But you ask me, that's actually, in my opinion, kind of good here, because still got a lot of miles here at Daytona to click off, as we see another blinking car up there. That's the 30 of Timothy Groff, still having connection issues, but trooping along out there on the racetrack. And here we see Aaron Brown make a move to the outside. He's going to try to collect his group of 4 that he's been running with and try to make it, as we see Chad Mikos now move up top, collect these lead lap cars and make a train of their own, move to the front of the pack. And now we see these 5 cars: Chad Mikos, Aaron Brown, Curtis Yancey, Scott Ricard, and then Tom, I believe it was Thomas Frisch, who's inserted himself in the mix in that number 54, joining that lead pack. But yeah, just Chris, as you called it, kind of these 10 cars now packed up.
Yeah, collected each other again, and now they're gonna just run at the top speed that they can possibly go. That, I gotta say, that bump drafting stuff makes me nervous. I can't even imagine making a conscious decision to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna kiss the bumper a couple times here to push them along the way. It's such an interesting strategy coming from, you know, the world of GT, where you try to not touch anyone's bumpers pretty much ever.
Well, hey, I've raced plenty of GT cars in real life, and we love to bump draft out there, so got a few tips and tricks I have to teach you for sure. But here we got our leader coming up to lap 50, 1/4 of the way through this 500-mile event. Sim Racers for Mental Health, Chad Mikos currently leading the way. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with more action.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Chad Mikos continues to lead the way here at this Sim Racers for Mental Health 500-mile event at Daytona. And if you want to learn more, go ahead and join the Sim Racers for Mental Health Discord or Facebook page to learn out more, or to learn more about what a great cause we are out here racing for. And also, if you're interested at all in getting your own event broadcasted here on the big screen, head on over to MaconiSetupShop.com and click on Maconi Entertainment. It's Got a tab up there in the corner, fill out the info, and you too can have your race or event broadcasted here with the commentary booth. And Chris, I know you're pretty new to the oval racing, but we're a quarter of the way through this Daytona event, and what do you think about it so far?
It's going great. The racecraft is top notch right now. Conveniently, you're here to teach me a little bit about the oval racing, which is very cool and very interesting to hear. It's one of those things where I've raced in ovals before, and while it may not have been for me, I actually do enjoy watching it, because I do know that the technicality behind all of the things that you have to do in order to keep your speed and also just, as you taught me, keep up with the pack is just, it's interesting and it's very amusing to watch. Like the bump drafting here, which we're witnessing right now, is absolutely insane to me in all reality.
We've got a yellow flag on the racetrack. Sorry to interrupt you there. Looks like Cretan Carter in the 71 here having problems coming through the tri-oval. Ryan Bauer, our producer, always on top of things with his replay, and looks like it, yeah, you see it here on screen. It happened off at turn 4, and I think it was the number 16 up top that just had a little bit of a moment, pushed Cretan Carter down below the line here and just lost control. And as we see, single car spinning, I'm actually pretty surprised this brought out the yellow flag. This is why right here comes back up onto the racing surface.
Yeah, once you hit grass in iRacing, or what I like to call ice that's just happens to be green, yeah, you're not stopping. So once he hit that little patch right there, he was getting back onto the track without a doubt.
Well, now what this is going to do is going to pack everybody back up, and working about 12 to 15 laps that these cars last came down pit road. So I expect the entire field to come down pit road, probably take 2 tires, top it up with fuel, and looky here. It looks like my crystal ball was right. Chad Mikos leading Aaron Brown in the field down pit road.
You have a much better Magic 8 ball than I do.
We'll see if you were. The crystal ball works different than the Magic 8 ball.
See,
if you get the two confused, yeah, you're using them all wrong, Chris.
Good grief. Well, it's not my fault. I ordered it on Amazon from one of the came from China.
Oh, goodness. Well, now, the rules in this series do allow these competitors unlimited sets of tires, so it really just depends on how long you want your pit stop to be in. We see most of these competitors taking 4 tires, right side first, then left side, as they do here at Daytona. And looks like Chad Mikos, first car out of pit road, leads Aaron Brown out there. And from what I see, I think there might be one car of Curtis Yancey out there. I don't know if he took tires or fuel only, but he's showing as position number 2. And Cretan Carter, who actually was the car that spun, did not come down pit road. He's showing our leader right now. Going to be curious to see if that 71 comes down pit road or just opts to keep the track position.
That would be interesting, I would say. I know I keep saying it's still early, still very early, but it realistically is. So there's a lot of strategy to be had still.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on, because I think Cretan Carter was just about to go by the pace car and then comes down pit road, so that's gonna sort everything back out. So it's gonna be Curtis Yancey in the 51 machine, your current leader. And gonna fanboy out a little bit here. Gotta give a shout out to the 51. The 51 was always one of my race numbers when I was racing back in IMSA and Grand Am and whatnot. So good to see the 51 out front here. And got Aaron Brown, who's going to be lining up alongside him there in the 35. Scott Ricard. 05 there in the position number 3. Tyler Graff, a name that we haven't mentioned much today, joining him in the second row, position number 4 in the 98. And then Alexander Pelican there, rounding out the top 5 for this restart. Now, Chris, we had a pretty good green flag run. What are you expecting to see here on this restart?
It feels like everyone's racing very friendly, I would say, at this point. Everyone wants to just stay on the track, tick down these laps. So I'm hoping that it just kind of stays the same. Just we compress everyone a little bit more. You know, obviously we're going to have a very different pack situation than we had for the last couple of laps here. But I really hope that they stay safe out there and we just get back to the normal racing that we've been seeing, just with bigger packs.
Looks like we are going to add one more lap here to the pace car. Looks like the field is having trouble trying to get collected back up here, and they want a nice clean restart, which I understand makes for a good show out here, and get these cars that are further back. Looks like it all starts with, well, no, Steve Areta is on pit road. Looks like just a few cars back here just struggling to get caught back up to the pack and back in line. And that's exactly what they want, is they want the grid organized for this restart, Chris.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's more exciting for the fans as well to compress everything back up and get everyone racing together again.
Yeah, and it looks like we got Blake Trawick back there on the apron. And then, yeah, it's still single file way back here for these. I don't know what's going on for the last 10 cars here in the line, but they're all single file. I wonder if iRacing has them all starting down low on the lower lane here, as we also have a car getting up to speed on the apron behind him. That's Chad Mikos. Now, I did not catch this, but looks like Chad Mikos took this extended yellow flag opportunity to come down pit road and fill it up with fuel, rejoin the back of the pack. So we'll have to see how that works out. That means Curtis Yancey going to lead this restart. Aaron Brown outside, Scott Ricard, Tyler Graff, Philip Resch now in the top 5. Got the pace car now out of Speedway 4. Going to be making that hard left turn. In fact, gets a little bit of drift action as he hits pit road. And Curtis Yancey is on the loud pedal, accelerating up through the gears.
Oh.
Aaron Brown immediately gets down in line in that lower groove, in position here, as we also see Philip Resch going to be the first car up in that high groove in the 83. Alexander Pelican in 31. Tyler Graff all lined up down low, but it's Curtis Yancey, your new leader. And ooh, interesting move here. He pulls down to the apron all the way out of line, gets off of the gas, and is letting this pack on by.
I wonder what happened there. It seems like obviously it's very difficult to get back on once you dip yourself down into the apron there, but yeah, it seems like there's something wrong almost, just based on the speed.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what the game plan is here for Curtis Yancey, because I don't see anybody back behind him on the track to really get collected up on. So I don't know. We'll have to report back on that strategy. But back up front, it's Aaron Brown, Scott Ricard, Tyler Graff inside the top 3 here. Pretty good organization from this lead group here. It's about, I'd probably say about 20 cars deep here. And now we got the 83 of Philip Resch. Got 3 friends in line with him, making a run on the outside lane.
Looks like there might be a couple debating whether or not to go up there as well, possibly here. Yep, there we go. Collecting some more buddies. Very nice.
And I mentioned it, the more friends you have, the more momentum you can have. the faster you go up there, but it's all about the organization. Not only do you have to have friends in line, but you got to be organized in line, because when you're spread out like that, the air is moving around, it is not streamlined, and when you get tucked in nose to tail, that is when you start to make a lot of ground, as we see the 83 start to give a pretty big push up here to Spencer Torrance in the number 10 car, and we're finally seeing two groove racing at Daytona.
Yeah, very exciting when it's too wide like that. I enjoy that style of racing. I don't think there's many people who wouldn't, rather than the single file, one line going around the entire track here. But this is going to be interesting when we get about 100 more laps knocked out, and that's when people start to really want to take places more than they want to cooperate necessarily. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the friendliness of this pack continues when we're at lap 162 rather than 62.
Well, you kind of mentioned it. We're not even halfway through here, and you're right. Another 100 laps down the road, and we can start to kind of think about what the shape of this race is going to be, and we got to get there first. And yeah, it was a little bit monotonous with the single file racing. It's good to see the double file here at Daytona, and I know that two lanes can safely race here on these high banked 31-degree turns, and we're starting to see it a little bit, but we got to make sure we click off these green flag laps, because when you do race side by side, that margin of error just gets a little bit smaller.
Yeah, one single car on the inside group spinning, and not only are they going to collect the upper group, but they're probably going to collect a lot of the group that's, behind them even. So a lot of danger here. Just one little mistake can really change the outcome of what's going to happen.
I'm seeing these two cars in the top lane here. I believe that's the 10 of Spencer Torrance being pushed by the 83 of Philip Resch. They're moving around a little bit here, and we also see the 13 on screen behind him. Got to be careful of when you give those pushes, because if you give them in the corners or on the wrong part of the car, it can really make the car in front of you, the pushee, very, very unstable, and all of a sudden you can have the car turned around in front of this pack. And you can see here, Chris, if we get a car turned here in the top 5, it is going to collect a lot of cars behind them.
Yeah, there is a pretty significant pack just in this train here, and one person out front, or it was that 83 on the right there gives that little IMB car just a nudge the wrong way, and we could see most of the field collected in that aftermath.
Well, and this is the closest we've seen and the biggest pack we've seen all night here. I'm looking back here. Looks like it goes all the way 20 cars deep right now. Oh, looks like the 66 got up into the wall there in turn 4 just by himself and continues on. Doesn't look like too much damage, but I tell you what, Chris, we're only working lap 65 right now. Things start to be heating up a little bit. Cars moving around, starting to take more than they're giving.
It's interesting because you see a lot more swerving now, because the tension in that pack is so much higher. One car swerves a little bit and you kind of see it ripple on the way back like a snake in a way, and it just, any little movement up front, and you can just imagine if you're sitting there on the steering wheel that you think you have to react in some kind of corrective manner and hope that you don't get collected up, and then ultimately could end up being the one that causes the issue.
Yeah, and we saw Quincy Carter not take it 3 wide with this lap car of Steve Rada in front of him, and it really stacked up this outside lane. And now we've got a lapped car of Steve Rada up in the top lane with this front pack. But look at up front here. We finally have a challenge for the lead. 2x2 racing, and sure enough, just as we get that, we have a yellow flag out on the racetrack. Looks like maybe Thomas Frisch in the 54, as well as the 17. I mentioned the 17 already had a couple issues getting onto pit road earlier, kind of wandering out there. See exactly what happened, and ooh, gonna catch this replay. Definitely looks like the 17 just once again wandering around on the racetrack, makes contact with the 54, and out comes the yellow flag. Chris, you got this replay right here.
Let's see what we got. Yeah, we haven't seen it yet here. Ooh, that almost looked like it was, honestly almost looked like it was connection related, because they didn't make contact, but the way that the lower car moved kind of suggested that there was some kind of contact there. Right there. See that? Where it almost looks like it was kind of a pit maneuver, but they visually didn't make contact, so it might have been something to do with the fact of network issues in there. But yeah, ultimately ended up collecting the both of them, and we're back under yellow.
I definitely will give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe the contact was connection issues, but definitely going to call it as it is, as that 17's been wandering around quite a bit all race, and unfortunately just couldn't keep it under control there and collected the 54 of Thomas Frisch out on the racetrack. Brings out another yellow flag, and here we are, lap 12 into this fuel stint, and Aaron Brown is going to bring the lead lap cars all down to pit road, take this opportunity one more time, fill up those fuel tanks, put 4 new fresh rubber tires on these cars.
I'm very curious to know how the track temperatures are actually affecting the tires for these drivers at the moment.
Well, let's pull up the weather here, because I know that we were hovering right about 80 degrees ambient to start, about 130 track temperature, and look at that, Chris. It has gone up 135 now track.
Yeah, that is very, very hot, and it's going to have an impact on your tires, and especially at 200 miles an hour around these banked corners that are going to heat them up even more. There's probably a little bit of issues going on there, and then maybe if you're pushing like 17, maybe you're having a little bit of grip issues out there.
Yeah, and just checking out here, this pace car looks to still have his lights on, so what we're going to do is we're going to take just a really quick break, catch you right back here in about a minute or two with this restart, and come back with this Sim Racers for Mental Health race of 500 miles at Daytona.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. visit iRacing.com.
We're here back at the virtual Daytona International Speedway, working lap number 70 of 200 in this SimRacers for Mental Health event. And looks like we got the number 60 of David Grantham going to be leading this field back to the green flag. And through the Geico restart zone, he is on the gas. Spencer Torrance in the number 10 was lining up alongside him. And now, Chris, we're back to green flag racing here at Daytona. You see the 2x2 action as the cars get sorted out. And you mentioned you were more from the GT world. What has impressed you the most from the racing you've seen out of these competitors?
The racecraft, honestly, at this point. Everyone generally seems to be pretty respectful and friendly out there on the track and, you know, trying to help each other, use each other. But I still am waiting for that pivotal moment that's probably going to come, you know, when we're a lot closer to the number 200, when all of that stuff, all of that friendliness kind of gets tossed out the window, and then we start to see some real dog-eat-dog, if you will, action out there where people are trying to take places and maybe put some iffy moves out there on the track.
Well, I tell you what, I actually just saw one of the first real, what I'd consider moves of the race, and that was Aaron Brown taking his car up to the top side. Now, he's been one of the consistent front runners, and he has been a bottom feeder all night, and this is the first time that he has voluntarily gone up to the top side to try to make some momentum up there. And he's immediately joined by a few friends as you see him get to work, starting pushing that number 11 of Josh Stiles. That's another car that we haven't mentioned at all tonight, but that's the number 11, made his way up inside the top 5. And Chris, just to let you know, that number 11 car that Aaron Brown is currently pushing on that top side started all the way back in the 35th position, and here he is with a huge push from Aaron Brown, challenging for the lead with the 60 of David Grantham down below. And look at this, the top line is going to prevail immediately. You see the 11 go down low, claim the lead lap, or claim the lead of that low line.
That's very interesting. He was fine up top, and I wonder if there was a little bit of, okay, I'm sick of 18 kissing my bumper back here. It's going to throw me off if he does it too many times, and just kind of letting him be on his own up there at the top, on the top line there.
Well, no, you see, the bottom line is definitely the preferred lane, and you see Aaron Brown immediately go down to that low lane as well once he was cleared. And if you don't have the organization up top, it can be very tough to make headway. And so when you get that momentum and you get those positions and you have the opportunity and you're clear, you definitely want to move down. And here we see Aaron Brown in a very familiar spot, starting to look like the beginning of the race. Well, I shouldn't say the beginning, really the majority of the race. The 35 car out front, but this time he's got Josh Stiles in the number 11, kind of virtual teammates because they're both Joe Gibbs. That would be the 18 and the 11, I guess, getting pushed together out front.
There's a lot more swerving and back and forth going on as we progress through this race, that's for sure.
Yeah, and here we see Josh Stiles.
Look at that.
Yeah, make the move. Was able to push Aaron Brown far enough out front. He took the momentum to the top side, and David Grantham in the 60 actually followed. And look at that. It's just the momentum and carrying that, riding the wave, if you will. And you got to be able to find that wave, ride it at the right time.
That's impressive. That's something that's very interesting, how so many cars, he made the one move, the typical move that, you know, when you're coming out of a draft where you sharp steer to the left or right and get around, but all the extra momentum that all those extra cars, the buddies, quote unquote, there, just pushed him way out front there.
Yep, and it's all about that organization and keeping the more friends in line, the more organized you have them, the better off you are. And Right now it's Josh Stiles leading the way over David Grantham, Spencer Torrance rounding out the top 3, and then Chad Nikos there in the 25 car. Then you got the 38 of Adam Jocelyn also inside the top 5, and I noticed these lead lap cars are coming up to that very familiar blinking car again, and hopefully all goes well this time as well.
That is, yeah, there was a car behind him. I didn't get to catch who was behind him, but obviously there is not one now, because a couple of blinks later and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to follow this guy anymore. Thank you.
Yeah, he does seem to have maybe blinked his last blink. And look at this, though, the 38, Adam Jocelyn with a good head of steam being pushed by, I believe that was the 05. Now we see the 10 of Spencer Torrance move up to the top side and try to claim that momentum for himself, but actually gets really loose and into the side of Chad Nikos. But oh my goodness, what a save out of this 25 car. He's still in the grass, but most importantly, he's going to get back up to speed. He's going to get caught up from this second group. Maybe looks like he's pretty far off pace. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to quite get up to speed. That was one of our front runners, and I'd love to get a replay if we can from Chad Nikos there, as he's trying to salvage his race right now.
That is a scary moment. Well saved, but yeah, still in salvage mode, still struggling to really get it back. And there's a mental game that you play with yourself where you're in like that tilt zone where you could make any mistake at any moment just because of what just happened. Oof.
Well, and yeah, here you see the replay. Then he's got to cut through the grass, just get it back on the racetrack, tiptoe it back out onto the racetrack. Does a great job to keep it under control. And not only that, but he sees this pack coming up behind him at such a high rate of speed. And here we got a yellow flag on the racetrack. This is the number 13 on screen. Trying to figure out exactly where that is. Looks like Quincy Carter having some problems out there. And then there's that familiar blinking car of the number 30 of Timothy Groff showing up again. But looks like we got another familiar face, the 17 involved in this one as well.
That blinking car was not on the track for about 2 full turns and then just appeared when we were watching the 13 go around. That's some intense connection issue. Oh, there.
Yeah, this was the 17 and the 13, the 2 cars involved, and a little bit of deja vu. This is kind of similar to what we saw out of the 17 in the previous wreck, just a little bit maybe of a loose condition in the car, and comes down the racetrack into the 13 of Quincy Carter. And Quincy Carter, unfortunately, an innocent passenger there in that one.
I guess all things considered, he hit the wall, direct nose to wall, but the car that created the incident straightened him back out and he was able to continue on.
Yeah, well, and we have to remember that all of these competitors, they have that one fast repair. So,
yes,
hopefully, Quincy hadn't used it yet. I think the 17... Looking, the 17 is a few laps down, so he's probably used his already. And here comes the lead lap cars, led by Josh Stiles, all coming down pit road. Fill it up on fuel, take those tires.
If you had your pick, one of the first pit boxes or one of the last, what's your preference?
I would just want a clean pit entry. Clean pit entry, clean pit exit is really all you can ask for. In sim racing, you don't really get to pick, it's just based off of your qualifying position. If you were to ask me here at Daytona, if you got 40 cars lined up, I'd probably want to be the last one, all the way furthest down pit road. That way I don't have to worry about anybody trying to rear end me or if I'm coming onto my pit stall from behind.
Yep, I am in the same boat, but for a much different reason. I have a, I guess, quick finger on the pit limiter button very often, to where if I'm one of the back pit boxes, I end up like psyching myself up for when the line finally hits and tapping a little bit too early and then getting in some trouble. So I like the last one as well, because then, you know, just a little teeny section of slowness and then you're back on the gas again.
Well, and our producer Ryan Bauer can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I know that the old cars did not have pit lane speed limiters. I'm not sure if the new next-gen cars have pit lane speed limiters. I do not believe that they do. So you're just playing with fancy sim technology over there.
Oh, yeah.
These drivers, they do not have that luxury available to them.
Oh yeah, in my world, if I didn't have the pit limiter button, I would be full throttle right off the box and go, oh, right, pit speed. Forgot about that, right.
Well, let's put you in the driver's seat, Chris. Let's say you're restarting here, and you're restarting in that top row, maybe 3 or 4 rows back. Do you want to try to team up with your buddies out there, or are you looking for the first opportunity to move into that lower lane?
I'd look for the first opportunity to move into the lower lane. I like to have my strategy done with and over with and just kind of get into that muscle memory zone of just knocking out laps, continuing to do the same thing over and over again, and not really have to worry about like, oh, do I go now? Do I go later? It's just get the move done and go ahead and get into repetition mode again.
Always a good strategy to have it planned out. And we're here racing the SimRacers4 Mental Health 500, and go ahead, join their Discord, join their Facebook page. They're always doing these cool special events for a great cause out there. And you see here, we started with 40, I believe we had 41 cars, and looks like we're down to 33 cars that are still running, and 28 of these cars are on the lead lap. So very competitive group out here, and SimRacers for Mental Health showing how it's done. And we're green flag racing back out on the racetrack. It's Chris Mayo in the number 29 leading Aaron Brown, and then we got the 11 of Josh Stiles lined up on the top side. Now Chris Mayo in the 29, he did not pit that last time by, so that is a new player up at the front of this grid.
We've had a lot of yellows, so I wonder if not taking the pit now is a strategy where you can get up into the front, and then the next time something happens with a yellow, you can then pit with everyone. Oh no, what if 3 cars collected? Oh, well, good thing he blinked because he teleported through everyone, it looks like.
Yeah, this is Adam Jocelyn, I believe Russell Peets, as well as Andrew Duncan maybe, and see exactly what caused this. Looks like this yellow car's off pace. We're 4 wide there on the back straightaway, and I bet you if we get a head-on shot, when they go 4 wide, things get very, very narrow very quickly, and there goes that blinking car. It's gonna make me chuckle all night.
Yeah, that did look like he blinked right through and got through scot-free because of the network issues, but
as you see here, though, it's just
he hit the shadow button, you know.
When it gets 4 wide there during that incident, it just gets very, very narrow. Not really a whole lot that the racers can do, and sometimes when you're not running triple screens or these ultra wide monitors or virtual reality, it can be really tough to judge the clearances side by side, and it doesn't matter what car you're in, you know the difference between a single monitor and being able to look around.
Yeah, and of course we do have the ability to hit the button to look left or right, but you never use those. No way you're gonna take your your viewpoint off looking forward. And, you know, crew chief is out there where your spotter will say things, but I don't even think crew chief would have reacted quick enough to tell any of those drivers that there was a car next to them.
Well, interesting that we had another yellow flag so quickly, but the number 29 of Chris Mayo stays out on the racetrack and working lap 31 of his fuel stint. Now, we know these cars can stretch it to about 40 laps under green flag running, 38 to 40 depending on who you ask and what your strategy is, but that means he's going to have to come down pit road here in the next 10 to 15 laps. He's got to be banking on another yellow, or it's really going to mess up his strategy and kind of toss his race away.
That's a big gamble right there. I know we've had a lot of yellows, and especially in the last, 25 laps. It's been pretty constant. But, I mean, if you think about the race before that, it was very clean. So we just may be going through a little bit of a rough patch here, and everyone might race clean from here on out, and that strategy is not going to help him.
We'll just have to see how it all plays out, and there's lots of racing left to do. Working lap 85 of 200 here at Daytona, and not even halfway through, Chris. And talk to me, if you were in the driver's seat right now, what's your mental focus got to be knowing that you're not even halfway through this thing?
In the first 60 or so laps, it felt like easy street, right? You're sitting in the driver's seat, you're getting into that repetition mode, as I've called it before. You're really starting to kind of get into your groove. But with all these yellows that we've had in the last couple of collections here, it's really throwing you off mentally, because there's a level of frustration that happens where you're like, I just want to have some clean laps, put my time in, knock these laps out. And when you get so many yellows, you start to get in your own head of like frustration of like, come on guys, can't we race clean? Can't we stay on the track? Can't we get these laps knocked out? So at this point, I'd probably just be focusing on like, okay, relax, maybe turn on some music or something like that. Because in the sim world, you know, nice and relaxed here. It's just, yeah, you got to get back into that mental version of fully focused, ready to go. Let's get back into racing again.
Well, I tell you what, if you're the 30 of Timothy Groff and turn on the music, it might be intermittent as he blinks through this thing.
It's like old CD days with skipping around.
You know, I haven't had my music skip in a very long time. That definitely just took me back for sure.
Something that you just don't even worry about anymore, right?
It really isn't. And to set the picture for this restart here, we got Josh Stiles in the number 11, going to be leading the field to this green flag. Chris Mayo lined up to the outside. We mentioned he's got 32 laps on his fuel stint, so a little bit more of an empty tank. See if that helps him with the acceleration, and the pace car dips off down to pit road, and Josh actually waits very, very patiently, waiting a long time to get going, and finally, green flag on the racetrack. Well, you saw Aaron Brown make a power move down the back straightaway straight to the lead, and he's got Emerson Arden in the 57 hooked up with them. And looky here, the 51 of Curtis Yancey. That was that car that fell way back earlier during one of those yellow flag periods. He's now back inside the top three and already Another yellow flag on the racetrack. Believe maybe this is Steve Rada back here involved in this one. The number 3 machine. I see Quincy Carter slow on the racetrack as well, and see exactly what happens. But Chris, doesn't matter what type of racing you're in, cautions breed cautions.
Yes, they do. Yes. Well, it gives you another chance. Wow, that's a lot of things happening right there to create that yellow flag. That one's pretty big.
Yeah, and it actually happened further up here. You see the 81, that's Alec Karen, as well as I believe that's the 13 of Quincy Carter involved. And then you see multiple cars get collected after that, riding on board the number 92. I'm not exactly sure what's on the hood of this car.
I was thinking the same, but
unfortunately, one of these cars that ends up getting collected, nowhere to go, and looks like a badge of some sort.
I'm not really sure what that is. I've been in 92's position before. You see a wreck happen up front, you're like, okay, what can I do to avoid this? And then the next evolution of the crash, you're like, oh, it's gonna get me. There's no avoiding this. It's coming straight for me, and it's one of the worst feelings as a racer out there on the track when you're like, there's nothing I can do. It's gonna happen. Here it comes.
Yeah. See some games being played. I didn't expect very many cars to come down pit road. Looks like we might have the about a handful of them or so. Maybe the back half of the lead lap. Not a bad idea to come down and fill it up with fuel, but only working lap 9 of this current stint, and a lot of these laps are under yellow flag conditions, so no real need to come down pit road right now. You're not really going to gain a whole lot, especially if we're one of these lead cars and nobody behind you comes down to pit road all of a sudden. Gone from the lead all the way to the back of the pack, and that's never fun.
Yeah, this is that mode that I'm telling you about where you're mentally frustrated because we didn't even get a full lap from the green to a new yellow. So you're at the point where you're just like, come on, please, let us get around this track more than twice. Let's get some laps knocked off of this thing so we can move on, and start to get into habit mode.
Yeah, and we started off pretty good, didn't we? That we had, we had the one quick yellow, but after that, had a really good long green flag run, and then had another decent green flag run. But ever since then, it has been a little bit broken with the yellow flags. And take a line from Joe Peak that always spay and neuter your yellow flags because they tend to reproduce out there.
When you started that statement, I just instantly started thinking Price is Right with Bob Barker at the end of every episode.
Absolutely. Yep, that's where it all comes from. And
Good stuff.
looks like we're gonna maybe get one more lap under this pace car condition as the lights now go out from what I see, and we're going to get the field lined up 2 by 2 for a restart, which will be lap 92 going back to the green flag, Chris. And if you had race control, you could speak to all these drivers. What advice would you come on the radio and tell them all here at once?
It would be, hey, let's go back to the beginning of the race and have some friendly laps. Let's get some of these laps knocked off this. Stop the craziness. Be conservative until you get into a groove. Let's get this race on with.
Well, I think that would be some pretty good advice to give all of these drivers out there. We'll see if they actually follow any of that. And, and this is no disrespect to these drivers or any drivers, but I've dealt with racing my whole life, and dealing with drivers is a bit like running a daycare center. And once you realize that and understand that, things go much, much smoother. But To set the picture, Aaron Brown, very familiar name to be leading this race, finds himself at the point, going to be in control of the field to go back to this green flag. And I know that Barney is up there in the flag stand. I guarantee you he's got the green flag in his hands, super patiently, very anxiously waiting for this field to come down and that he can get this racing back going. You see Emerson Arden kind of creeping his way out front, and Aaron Brown took big advantage of that with a huge jump out front in this acceleration zone. And the 35 leads the way. That's the 51 of Curtis Yancey behind him. And now I expect Emerson Arden to go straight down to the bottom groove, which he does, fill that third place position. And then you have Alexander Pelican there, fourth spot, followed up with Nick Gardner in the 16. And you see Curtis Yancey jump out of the line, try to get the high groove going, but he's got nobody there to help him.
One buddy coming up to bump draft a little bit there to push him forward again, but yeah, he fell back a lot. Initially, I thought we were going to go back to single file lines there. It looked like every file, like you have that second line kind of on the tail end of this group here, still forming up.
And you see Curtis Yancey immediately get back in line down low. I think he realized his mistake and took the opportunity to jump back into that low groove in the 7th place position. So looks like it's the 64 is the first car in the top lane. That's Thomas Stewart back there, but it's Emerson Arden pushing Aaron Brown for the lead of this race. And I don't think I'm really surprised right now, Chris, because Aaron Brown has found himself in the lead of this race quite consistently and is very comfortable up there.
Yeah, there was the one time where he made the mistake and fell back to, I think it was like 6th or 7th, and then he got it. He's back up front again. He definitely likes to be out front like we all do, but he's backing up his desire with skills here.
Well, in that low groove, had a big checkup coming out of turn 4. We saw the 3rd and 4th place cars kind of get underneath each other and thankfully stayed off and didn't make too much contact. But that gave an opportunity for this top lane to really make a lot of ground, and they're pretty well formed up. And looking at them right now, the top lane is actually well organized in comparison to this bottom lane. Just if they are able to keep it up, they might be able to make a little bit of ground, but sure enough, just as I say that, they start to get out of groove, and it really all starts with the 25. Chad Mikos is kind of hanging out in the middle versus committing to that top groove, and sure enough, Chad Mikos tries to make it 3 wide here, does move up through the middle, kind of leaves the 64 high and dry up there, but a really good move from the 25, and he continues to try to work that middle groove. We see Aaron Brown move up the racetrack here. Now he moves up to the top, and that's going to give Emerson Arden down low. The lead being pushed by Tyler Graff in the 98. Then he got the 60 of David Grantham in the 3rd place position. Now, we've seen Aaron Brown move up. This is the 2nd time he's moved up to the top side of the racetrack. Try to get this groove formed up a little bit, and neither time has it worked out. And Chris, if you ask me, I'm not moving to the top side of the racetrack unless I have 3 friends and we're all on the same radio channel and we're all agreeing on what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's just been detrimental to people today, pretty much consistently, and I would be in the same boat where I would avoid it at all costs, essentially. Because Aaron Brown just fell back all the way to 5th just because he poked up there a little bit.
And he ducked back in line just to make a move back to the high side out of 4, and using that draft and the momentum of the top groove down the straightaway here, but really the 3 cars out front starting to separate themselves a little bit, and no matter how hard Aaron Brown works that top groove, he just can't seem to make any ground up there. And Like I said, unless you have, multiple friends that are willing to work with you and stay very well organized, i.e. a teammate, I just don't see the top groove making any ground today.
Yeah, he keeps retrying again and just losing one place almost each time that he tries to get up there again. So, it's one of those situations where I would, after knowing that, because the only other time he's really attempted the top line like that was when he lost the 7 places, or 6 or 7 back earlier. I would abandon it pretty much the rest of the race, to be honest with you.
Riding on board here with Adam Jocelyn in the number 38 machine, 192 miles an hour through Daytona 1 and 2 as this top groove now actually has just a little bit of momentum as you see Aaron Brown get a big shove. Makes him a little bit nervous down the back straightaway there as you saw the car wiggle around a little bit. But Emerson Arden in the 57 leads the way. Tyler Graff, David Grantham, Brian Young, and Curtis Yancey are your top 5 currently on the racetrack, and it's Aaron Brown that's leading that top lane. But he's all the way back there, kind of hovering around the 7th or 8th place on track, depending on the momentum he's got.
It just doesn't look like that top line is going to make it happen. Not at this point, not unless some cooperation changes happen here in the near future.
He does make a good amount of ground going down the back straightaway when that top groove is organized, and they had 3 or 4 cars here that were pretty organized and see a little bit of ground being made up, but sure enough, just not quite organized enough. And here we are, lap 100 of 200, halfway through this Sim Racers for Mental Health 500. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with more racing action.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need, Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to the Sim Racers for Mental Health 500 here at Daytona. Been having a little bit of action on the racetrack, but we stay green flag working lap number 103 of 200 currently, led by Emerson Arden in the 57. Tyler Graff, second place. David Grantham, Brian Young, and Curtis Yancey currently rounding out the top 5. Now, Chris, in these last couple laps, we've definitely seen some moves being made, a little bit of contact out there, and things start to seem to heat up a little bit.
Yeah, it also seems like Aaron is admitted the error of his ways and tucked back down in that lower line there. And we're now running with one single line, trying to collect some people to say, hey, come on up to the top with me, but it doesn't look like anyone's biting. Everyone's seen what happens when you go up there, so they're like, I'm going to stay down here, keep the pace.
Well, and yeah, with everybody on a fixed setup, we've seen that if you don't have friends and a lot of organization, you might as well stay on the lower lane because that's where the majority of the cars are going. And if you don't have the momentum, you're just going to fall straight back. Now, we have seen a couple moves up through the middle when things are busy from the likes of Chad Mikos, and he made some pretty good moves through traffic, but things were pretty bunched up and 2x2 in front of him, and I think he just took advantage and did a little bit of Dale Jr., rode that wave and used the slipstream up through the middle.
It's an interesting strategy to just keep tucking down into the bottom, go to the top, down to the bottom, go into the top. I don't know. It would be nerve-wracking for me as a driver to continually try something and fail again. You know? It just seems like I would want to tick off as many of these laps as possible and just not create any waves, if you will. Just let it go by. Plan out my strategy for the last, 25% of the race, and then think about, okay, what is my move now? I just want to get into repetition mode and knock out these laps, really.
Yeah, now I agree with you. You got to knock out the laps, but I'm going to play devil's advocate because, first of all, you got to keep the car safe and keep a green flag running, but you have 200 laps of practice. Think about how much you can fill your notebook on, well, this didn't work this time. Okay, what if I try something a little bit different next time? And remember, you got so much time to go out there and practice this stuff, and the more you try it, the more you're going to learn, and the more you can fill that notebook. Oh, Aaron Brown is really loose. He's having troubles hanging on to his car. The 35 car got on the apron after having a huge moment here in Speedway Turn 3. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it's interesting because we've seen over the course of this race, he's so spot on for the first, realistically, 100 laps. And only recently have we started to see him just kind of be a little bit less perfect, if you will.
That could be due to tires. Here he goes up the racetrack trying to catch a sniff of draft off the lap car, make it 3 wide. Looks like Timothy Groff has found the sweet spot on the bunny ears. He is not blinking right now. We'll keep our fingers crossed that he's got the tinfoil set up properly on top of the TV. Looks like Emerson Arden, he's been one of the consistent front runners throughout the course of this race, and really ever since Aaron Brown fell back, it has been the 57 that has kind of taken charge, taken the reins of the race, if you will. He's looked very comfortable out front, being pushed by the 98 there of Tyler Graff. Then they got the 60 of David Grantham, and we've seen these three kind of push their way out front a little bit, separate themselves from fourth place of Brian Young, but the slipstream is so powerful that it really is keeping this entire train in line. But pretty good to see organization out of these top three, and then you got Brian Young back there, and then you got that familiar face of Aaron Brown. But I tell you what, Chris, Aaron Brown, I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on him. The car looks very loose underneath him, and with how hot the track was that we've been keeping an eye on, it's gonna get worse and worse.
Tire wear, tire temperatures, it has to be what he's struggling with there. It's not like anything's changed in the setup other than just the tire temperatures at this point. So it's definitely playing its toll and making it so that he can't do exactly what he wants out there on the track.
Now, I believe it was 130-degree track temperature when we started this race. I think when we checked in, it was, what about 135 earlier? I wonder what it's at right now. If we can get a quick check on it, see if we can still cook some eggs out there on the track surface. Oh, we're back down to 132, Chris. So it's starting to cool off just a touch.
Much cooler now. No longer 135. So
we're only at the warming temperature. You can't cook the food on it. You can only keep it warm out there on the racetrack. And sorry, just amusing ourselves here. Working lap 110 of 200. You see these front three starting to be a little bit more aggressive with the pushing. Tyler Graff looking to that outside lane, and I think Tyler Graff may be saying that, all right, I'm not okay with the more aggressive pushing. We still have a long ways left on the race, and just as I say that, looks like maybe Thomas Stewart having problems because we got a yellow flag on the racetrack. This is the 64. I believe this is exit of pit lane. This is an unfortunate one, that this brought out a yellow flag that he just simply lost control by himself and is doing donuts essentially, and get a yellow flag on the racetrack.
Yep. Just out there. The race isn't over quite yet. No celebration.
Well, and he just spun by himself again on pit road, on the apron. He's gonna get a black flag, I believe, for an unsafe exit. I don't see anything yet, but the 64 of Thomas Stewart taking some agricultural routes out there and some new lines on the racetrack that have yet to be explored. Now, Chris. 31 laps it looks like Emerson Arden has done on this fuel stint. David Grantham there in second place, only 22 laps. So David is only about halfway through this fuel tank. Emerson about 3/4 of the way through the fuel tank. Do you think we're going to see varying strategies?
I think we have to at this point. That's a pretty big gap in fuel levels right there. So I wouldn't expect it to unify itself again, but we could be surprised.
I think we're going to see everybody come down pit lane.
Like it, yep.
And sure enough, the whole lead lap makes their way down pit road. See who stops in their box the best, has that best virtual pit crew time out there, as Emerson Arden was the one who led them on to pit road. Up on the jacks he goes. 2 tires. We'll see if he takes 4 tires. Yes, the 57 does in fact take all 4 tires, and now we got the race off of pit road. Looks like that was very close here. Believe it's still the 57, but the 86 of Brian Young. Great job. I think that he might actually be, I think he beat out Emerson Arden. Great job from the 86 team. And hey, to throw a curveball, we saw this car earlier, the number 29, Chris Mayo. If that rings a bell at all, he was one of the cars that stayed out and really stretched the fuel stint hoping for a yellow flag, and he eventually got one. And here he is doing the exact same strategy, working only about halfway through his current fuel stint, staying out on the racetrack, and is now your current leader.
Well, it didn't negatively impact him last time he did this same strategy, so maybe a little bit of gambling again. I mean, we have had a lot of yellows, so at this point you're not necessarily expecting your fuel tank to have to go all the way through to the 40 laps.
Well, and we were talking about it before, you know, the difference in the fuel tanks between the 2 front runners, between Arden and Grantham, and Basically, Chris Mayo was just further back in the pack, but on that same strategy as the number 60. And here we see someone with an alternate strategy. We'll see if people are reproducing these yellows over in the garage area and going to throw them out on the racetrack, or if we'll have some green flag running like we saw for almost a full fuel stint there. Going to be Chris Mayo in the number 29 car, who's going to be dictating this restart. We mentioned he stayed out, so he does have, let's see here, 25 laps currently on those tires, and I don't think he's going to be at a detriment at all on this restart. We see all the cars usually get up to speed relatively easily, but will be interesting to see if he wants to be out front in this race or if he wants to be further back drafting, because if memory serves correctly, I believe the 29 usually gets out of line, and that's going to be pretty tough to do when you're leading the pack, Chris.
Yeah, it's you're kind of forced into your position there. I wouldn't expect him to go to the top line there, but yeah, you're just gonna hopefully sit it out, wait for the next yellow, as as we should expect at this point in the race based on past history here, and then hopefully get your gas tank filled up at a more opportune time after all these other drivers stay behind you, hopefully.
And we've got green flag back out on the racetrack. Brian Young being pushed by David Grantham right there. Chris Mayo is now hooked up, being pushed by Emerson Arden. He moves up top, but I tell you what, he really stacked up that lower lane and not getting going. And now we see, I believe it's going to be Aaron Brown is going to be the car behind the 29 of Chris Mayo. And sure enough, indecision, and this could trigger a big one. We see handful of cars involved here. And this all started with that 29, Chris Mayo and Aaron Brown. We see cars coming basically to a stop, try to avoid, doing a great job avoiding this, but this is indecision right here. Chris Mayo at the front of the field can't decide, do I want to go up top, do I want to be down low? And that was just, you can't choose two lanes and expect things to go well.
No, that was definitely a mistake of indecision right there, without a doubt, and that ended up costing a lot of cars a lot of damage there. Ooh, that one's bad.
And then get a couple more looks here. We're going to ride on board with Aaron Brown. He's going to think he's got the middle, and you're going to see the 29 go from the top lane down low all of a sudden, and he is not clear, and that's what sets off this chain of events. See if Aaron Brown is able to get through, which he is. Wow. Good avoidance after the wreck there. And I'm actually chuckling a little bit at the 77. Oh, goodness. There was a really slow car on the apron there. Not sure if there was damage or not, but really close call from Aaron Brown. But the 77 came in full ARCA style into this wreck. All gas, no brakes through here.
Oh, wow.
Finally gets it slowed down. Well, and we've got more pit stops going on down pit road right now. These competitors are taking the opportunity to get some of that damage fixed. And as I say that, they're stacking up behind the pace car, hopefully not taking any damage. And we're going to get them re-racked, restacked, but Chris, there's been action in the garage, hasn't there? And they threw those yellow flags out on the track.
They had to have, yeah. This is, I don't think we've had 10 consecutive laps in quite some time now. A lot of, I guess you would call this action at this point, but a lot of mistakes going out on there.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can get them going back again.
What?
I'm not sure who's taking the bus stop route, the old road course bus stop route, and I don't blame them. When you have this much yellow flag, you got to do what you can to keep yourself amused out there. And I think that's exactly what we saw. And looking down timing and scoring right now, it's the first 4 cars on the racetrack did not come down pit road. So that is Emerson Arden, Jamie Smith, Brian Keita, and Caleb Carter. Now, Brian Keita in the 66 and Caleb Carter, these are 2 names that we haven't mentioned on today's broadcast very much, and looks like they started way back. Actually, pretty impressive, Chris, here. Jamie Smith in the 2nd place position started 25th, up 23 spots currently. Brian Keita, currently 3rd place, started way back in the 32nd spot. He is up 29 positions up there, and pretty good run, wouldn't you say?
I would definitely say he's living on cloud 9 right now, going, okay, well, if yellows are going to do this for me, let's continue this less than 10 laps, and I'll keep nudging my way up this leaderboard here.
The other big mover there, the number 44 of Caleb Carter. He started back in the 31st position, up 27 spots inside the top 5 for that number 44 car. And this could mean 2 things, Chris. It could mean a great day for these racers and good track position. Let's keep this forward momentum going. Or it could mean a little bit of unfamiliarity at the front of this field and some nervous racers at the front trying to make their way in this lead group.
That's an interesting fact there, because when you're not used to leading a race is one of the most nerve-wracking, stressful moments that you can possibly be put in. When you've kind of settled on, okay, I know I'm a back-of-the-pack racer for now. I'm going to work on my racecraft, work on my pace, and then all of a sudden you're thrown into the front. You don't really know necessarily how to keep the pace up or how to realistically defend your position.
Yep, and we've got a green flag on the racetrack. Barney, the flag man, viciously waves that green flag for these cars to get up to speed. Emerson Arden in the number 57, followed by Jamie Smith in the 26, and then I believe we've got Caleb Carter here in the 44, having a few little blinking issues in the top lane. And man, we've had quite a few connection issues, and having a blinking car all the way up front in the lead pack, gosh, it's got to be nerve-wracking for everybody watching that.
Everyone around that car right now is just like, what is going to happen?
And now he's trying to make it 3 wide. The 44 is Caleb Carter here, and we're going to just have to see how this works out, because the racing is very tight up at the front. Working lap number 120 of 200. That's 81 to go here, Chris.
That's a stressful situation. Now, obviously, we are connected to the race just like all of these racers are, so it may not be blinking for some of the other people around them, but that's still nerve-wracking, because it's got to be blinking for a couple of them at the very minimum. And if it's the person right behind them that's getting the intermittent visibility of the car in front of you, that is one of the most stressful things that you can experience, because all of a sudden it could pop back in and you're bumper to bumper with it, or taking them out, or doing something like that. That's a lot of speed going over the grass.
Yeah, and looks like we got wreck further in the back of the pack, yellow flag on the racetrack. Do I see the 29 Chris Mayo involved in this one again? Wonder exactly what happened, and I believe our old friend the 77 also involved. Scott Wilkerson, I believe, is the first car that ends up getting turned, and then more happens here through the tri-oval. I can't quite catch out who that green car was, but it was 3 wide. And I just don't think that they knew they were 3 wide. And as you see, multiple cars turned around full course yellow.
I thought it was the car that's out on the grass out there that caused this wreck, but they ended up not really being a part of the major action out there.
Correct, yeah, that was the 77 Scott Wilkerson that got turned around initially, and that actually saved him from being involved in the middle of this wreck. And I don't know, sometimes, you know, luck turns your way. You get spun out of the pack, you lose the draft, but then right in front of you where you were, a yellow flag happens that takes out a lot of cars. And if I was the 77, count your lucky stars.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where you're so frustrated. Now, he did rescue it, so anytime you touch the grass in iRacing, it's one of those really iffy kind of moments where you never know what's going to happen. But he came out of it perfectly fine, and when he looked up again after saving that, he goes, oh, well, I was with them, and now I'm okay, and I can just drive on by.
Well,
nice.
Now that I've got my proper posture going on over here, you know, looking good on camera. How you been doing, Chris? You hanging in here tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I wish we could get more than 10 laps off at a time, or 5 laps off at a time, but generally speaking, at least they're giving us plenty of action to commentate about, so we're not just sitting here watching cars go around for hundreds of laps. But I would like to get a little closer to that 200 so we can see that pivotal point when everyone's mindset shifts and now it's, I've got to win this race, or I've got to pass this guy in front of me.
Well, and we're counting our chickens a little early here, but to talk about the end of the race, we do have 3 green-white-checkered flag attempts, and I know that you're new to oval racing. To explain a green-white-checkered attempt is that if we have a yellow flag near the end of the race and it goes to 1 lap to go, what it essentially does is it extends that race time. So that way, when we go back to green flag racing, we get 1 lap, 1 white flag lap, and then it's the checkered flag lap. So you get green, white, checkered. And if you get the checkered flag, of course, that ends the race. However, if we get another yellow flag before the white flag, we do it all over again, and we have 3 of those attempts. So
Okay.
we'll just have to wait and see if we get that playing out at the end of this race.
Yeah, if things go like they have for the past, 50 or so laps, I could see us possibly hitting that limit, because it seems like everyone is out there. I mean, obviously they're trying. They wouldn't be racers if they weren't trying for position, but, you know, it's getting to the point where now we're not really able to get a lot of clean laps in a row, so that might happen.
Well, and I also bring it up based off of strategy, because this is a 200-lap race, right? However, if we have that yellow flag at the end and we have multiple green-white checkers, it can definitely push past 200 laps, and if you're not counting on doing those extra laps, you can run out of fuel and ruin your race just by not having enough fuel in the car.
Yeah, and there have been a couple of drivers out there that have been gambling a little bit with the gas tank, so it could actually have major impact later on.
Yeah, it can definitely have an impact, and it looks like we got the lights out on the pace car, which means we're going to be going back green flag racing on lap 125 of 200. That will be 76 laps to go. For all of you keeping score with your little tally cards out there, just knocking off, writing those dominoes each, or what is it, the tally marks for the, gonna write down a lot of those on the wall, I guess.
or a hole punch. I don't know.
200 bottles of beer on the wall. Down to 77 bottles of beer on the wall. Well, it is Emerson Arden out front. Brian Keita there in the 2nd place, lining up alongside him in the number 66 machine. Brian Young in the 86 in the 3rd place position. Adam Jocelyn and Jamie Smith rounding out your current top 5 on the racetrack. And These cars are going to be coming out of Speedway Turn 4, which means the pace car is going to be ducking down into that pit lane. We'll see if he gets that crazy drift going on again, because he really commits hard down to pit road. There he goes.
There he goes.
Impressive turn, and here we are in the restart zone. The 57 hard on the gas. We have a green flag racing back on the racetrack. Brian Young in the 86 also gets a pretty good jump, and now we see the 38 of Adam Jocelyn go down to the bottom side of the racetrack, and actually pretty well organized for the first 4 cars down low. You got the 60 car, David Grantham, your first car in the top groove. Some good pushing from Brian Pita down the back straightaway to our leader, Emerson Arden. David Grantham also had a good push from Brady Wagoner back there in the number 28 car. Teamed up with Blake Trawick, as well as Spencer Torrance in the top lane. And this is actually the most momentum we've seen out of the top groove, and we've really only seen the top lane kind of drift backwards. And here we see the 60 of David Grantham actually make a little bit of headway on the outside.
Yeah, the top line just has not been very fruitful for any of these drivers this evening. So this is kind of refreshing to see the top actually taking it to that bottom line there.
And here we see for the first time the top lane actually take the lead going down the back straightaway, but through 3 and 4, the lower lane seems to carry the momentum, but here we see this top groove get formed up once again. The 60, David Grantham, your new leader as he crosses the stripe. Now he is clear of this low groove. I wonder if we're going to see him shift down. No, he's going to keep that nice momentum up top. The first 3 cars, David Grantham, Brady Wagner, and Blake Trawick, are all clear of the lower groove. If you ask me, I'm moving down right now. However, the momentum is still going, and now we've got a lap car that we're going to have to go 3 wide. This is going to get busy.
Yeah, that's a scary moment when you're coming up on a lapped car, especially because they came from the apron all the way to the top to let you by. But that's still something that you gotta worry about, what the reaction of all the other drivers are going to be. Obviously, if you're in the front, that's optimal situation. But as you're 2 or 3 columns back or rows back, then you're like, okay, I see this car coming up. What is everyone else in front of me going to do? How are we going to actually navigate this situation?
Yeah, that's Alex Karen in the 81, letting the field by. Now he's kind of packed up with the rest of the group and back up to speed. Always good to see, because it is very, very nervous times when you go 3 wide. And at Daytona, 2 wide is plenty doable. 3 wide, yes, it is doable as well, but it starts to get pretty nervous. It is not Talladega where you have these multiple lanes of the racetrack. And you see now the 60 and the 28 have moved their way down to the bottom side of the racetrack, but it's the 56, Blake Trawick, the leading car on the high lane, now trying to make and claw his way up to the front of this pack. We see the 28 of Brady Wagner down there giving the push to David Grantham down in that lower groove. It seems like this low lane is starting to form up, but this is the most 2x2 racing we've seen all night for this SimRacers for Mental Health Daytona 500 event, and pretty impressive to see what is essentially one giant parking lot doing 190 miles an hour.
Yeah, we've actually lost quite a few cars now, so it definitely feels like it's a smaller race, but that's interesting because even though it feels a little bit smaller cars here, it's just tighter racing and just way more dangerous at this point. I'm not going to say anything about well, I guess I'm going to say cleanliness of racing, so this feels pretty good at this point, and it's hopefully we can just stay the course, keep this going. That car really put a wrench in the gears of that top line there, and they're falling way back because of that lapped car. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, but actually a really good job by the 39 of Russell Peets. He stayed way up out of the way, and it was just the competitors getting disorganized that really broke up that top lane like you were mentioning, and you see everybody jump ship. They are getting out of that top groove, going straight down to that low lane. They say, hey, we realize it is not organized anymore. We want to stay up with the front of the pack, and that is the low lane. This is riding on board with Alexander Pelican. He is currently in the 9th spot, pushing, I believe that, let's see here, who is he pushing up there? I think that's the 05 of Scott Ricard. That might be right in front of him. And here we see Aaron Brown now jump up to the high side. Now, we've made comments, he's jumped up there twice and he's done nothing but fall backwards each time. Now, he's making a little bit of run. Ooh, the 25 just had a big moment. Now he collects the 26 into the wall. Looks like we're going to stay green flag on the racetrack, but both the 25 and 26 having problems in turn 1 and 2. Oh, that was, and there's the 16. Now we got clipped, and still staying green flag on the racetrack, but a really unfortunate events. A couple innocent cars getting collected.
I like the tenacity of Aaron Brown there, trying that top line again. And it looks like it's not quite panning out for him once again. I mean, he's not back that much, but he still is progressively falling, and it just doesn't seem like that top line is going to give him what he wants, and he tucks back in. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, so that is the 3rd time he's tried it, and the 3rd time he has lost ground. However, I will say this is the first time that he initially gained ground for the first half of lap, and then he fell back. So maybe if you're looking for a late race move, the last half of the lap, it might be enough to slingshot you by for a position. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see what the checkered flag holds as we go by another lap car here through the tri-oval. It's going to get narrow and 3 wide one more time as these cars go by this green lap car, the number 32, I believe that is out there, and looks like they all make it through safely.
To be that lapped car that has to tuck yourself up by the wall, knowing that you got to get as close as you possibly can to be courteous to the other drivers out there, but knowing that 3 wide is just inherently dangerous around here anyway. That's just, it just adds another layer of my race is not going as planned.
Well, Aaron Brown and Emerson Arden are hooked up. And I know I've heard him on the radio previously in the race. I don't know if they're working together at all, but doing some pretty good shoves and bump drafts going on right now. And the 57 was pretty crossed up coming out of turn 4. And riding on board with Brady Wagner in the 4th place position, looking out front, and pretty good organized, streamlined groove down low for probably about 5 cars, 6 cars, and then we're side by side back there for 7th, 8th place with Brian Kita and Scott Ricard, are those 2 cars battling side by side.
Yeah, that top line is pretty much spent at this point. No one seems to want to join up there except for the 2 cars that we have there now, and it doesn't seem like it's not benefiting them like it was at the beginning of this section of green laps.
No, and it's always just kind of an ebb and flow, and you see the 31 here, Alexander, able to give Scott a good shove every now and then, but can't keep it up the whole time. And here we see a lap car now staying down low, so this is the first time these cars on the lead lap are actually going to have to move up the racetrack around them. You see the snake kind of go up, and it causes actually a lot of problems. Multiple cars really loose out of 4, and that's Aaron Brown losing it on the racetrack, and we've got a yellow flag as more cars are spinning on the racetrack, and That all started because a lapped car was making the lead lap cars go around the top side and just lose condition. Watch the 18 here. Gonna lose it all by himself coming out of turn 4.
Well, all things considered, you know, I like to praise these drivers for when they save something like that. That was well saved right there. There was a lot of counter steering going on in a couple of moments where I'm sure he was like, oh, it's over now, but he managed to bring it back.
He did save his race indeed, and not quite save the year because we did get a yellow flag out there on the racetrack, but he did not go full 360 around. Good job of car control there from Aaron Brown, and he actually maintains, let's see here where race control puts him back. Looks like 12th place is where he's going to slot back in line, and looks like most of these cars are about halfway done with their fuel stint, and we're going to get all of them, or I should say most of them, coming down pit road. Fill it back on up with fuel, take 4 new fresh tires, and re-rack them and restack them again.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer to that point where a full tank of fuel could finish out the race for you, but these yellows being so consistent, I don't know what the strategy is at this moment. I think it's just, I guess you kind of gauge it based on what you think is going to happen with all the rest of the racers. If they go for pits, you go, well, I guess I may as well go too, just in case.
Well, I think in terms of strategy, if you're looking at the end of the race, your first marker should be you can make it about 40 laps on green flag stint. So we're 63 laps to go. So no matter what, you're still going to have to come down and get gas from here. Now, we talked about the green-white checkers. Now, if you come down at 40 laps and get gas, you might not be able to make it all the way through to the end, depending on the green and yellow situation that happens in those 40 laps, or 40 plus laps at that point. And so I think if we see the strategy game, Chris, I expect cars to pit around lap 30, I would say. However, I think we're gonna follow more the trend of when the yellow flags happen.
Yeah, it definitely seems by how this race has gone so far that you won't really have to calculate all that much once we get up into the higher numbers here. It's gonna be kind of forced by one of the yellows.
And looks like the leader is going to be David Grantham on this restart here, and going to get a wave by for that one lapped car that was still behind the pace car here. But looks like the lights are out. Now, Chris, the crystal ball wasn't kind to you earlier today.
No, it wasn't.
But you've seen almost 150 laps of racing now. The crystal ball should have more knowledge. What is it saying? How long are we going to get this green flag run for?
You know, for some reason, the number 3 stuck in my head when I was thinking, how many more yellows do you think we're going to get? And I don't know why, because that does, if I think about it, it does feel like it's a little low, but I'm going to go with my gut on this one, and I'm going to say 3.
3 yellows. We're going to do it for Dale today. And with 62 laps to go, that means a yellow flag roughly, what is that, about every 15 laps or so in order to get 3 of them in here. So
I know that doesn't seem like a lot of confidence, but
well, we're about to see, because the field is in the hands of David Grantham, the number 60 car out front, and he's got Emerson Arden lined up alongside of him, and Scott Ricard's going to be in the 05, pushing him along on this restart here. Alexander Pelican and looks like Brady Wagner round out the top 5, and David chooses to wait quite a ways before he gets on the gas. You see Barney giving the beans to that flag up there. We're racing once again here at Daytona International Speedway. Pretty well organized from the top 2. Some wiggles out of the 28 here, and Brady Wagner needs to get a little bit more organized if he wants the confidence of the cars behind him to get up behind and help push.
It seems like we're just getting a lot more side-to-side movement for pretty much everyone in the field at this point. It's, you know, we're 140 laps in, so it does make sense that consistency may dip a little bit, but it's just a lot more side-to-side movement. We still have a car in there that likes to play disappearing games of peekaboo out there. You know how that goes, but all in all, I think that's why we're just seeing so many more incidences, just inconsistencies.
Well, big move from the 05. Scott Ricard decides to go up to the top groove, say, hey, Emerson, let's team up here. Let's see what we can do up in the top lane, because looks like he's gonna get pushed to the front around the 60. Big head of steam down the back straightaway, but here comes the run from the 60 of David Grantham. He's got help from the 28 down below. We've really got tandem pushing 2x2 for the first 4 positions here, working lap 60 to go. Emerson Arden doing a really good job to stay hooked up front with Scott Ricard in the top groove there. This is the most consistent we've seen the top lane be able to fight for the lead, and if we see the lower groove prevail, it's going to have to come from the 28 getting more organized down low. But right now, Emerson Arden, like I said, just doing a really, really good job providing that push to the 05. And you see Emerson, as soon as he was clear of that lower lane, he took the opportunity and jumped down to that low groove.
A little shake and bake action going on there with them.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it is teaming up, playing the draft, working the air for your benefit, and as soon as you can take advantage and capitalize on that track position, that's exactly what the 57 did. And I know technically he's not leading the race, but now he is as they go through Speedway Turn 2, and the lower groove starting to get formed up a little bit more. .60 of David Grantham still providing the push to Emerson Arden down low, and see a little bit of movement from that top lane starting to go to the bottom groove now. And things are starting to fall apart for that top groove. The momentum is officially lost.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it lasts for that many, so you have to capitalize on it for the 3 to 5 laps that it's working, and then get out of there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all from the organization. And if there's 4, 5, 6 cars that can keep it organized up top, they can make the ground and they can definitely battle it. I've seen it plenty of times be done here in the sim, but you have to be very well organized when it comes to that. And I think these cars out here, they're working together, but they're not necessarily working together on that teammate level.
Yeah, and it's definitely a domino effect. Once one person abandons ship, the others are like, well, unless something magical happens here, I have to abandon ship, and it's just this massive domino effect that ultimately ends up affecting the top row.
Pretty good, clean racing here on the low groove for the first 5 cars. And then we get side-by-side racing way back there. That's the 38 of Adam Jocelyn. Then you got Aaron Brown. Then that's Scott Ricard back there, just trying to keep the momentum in that top lane. But It's a bit like climbing up a slip and slide. You know, you're able to take a couple steps, but then as soon as you feel like you have your footing, it just all slips from underneath you and you go right back down.
Yeah, you feel that little bite of confidence, and then it all comes sliding out.
A little wiggle. Nervous moment there from Emerson Arden out front, but everybody stays in line behind him. It gives the opportunity for Scott Ricard in that outside lane to make a bunch of positions. See him jump all the way up into the 4th place now. And that's what I'm talking about, Chris, that if you have teammates and you can have that organization, if the bottom groove is not organized, you can actually get up there and challenge for the lead.
Very interesting. You know, as we've said a couple times, I'm pretty new to oval racing, and it's very, very cool to see how it just ebbs and flows and changes each lap.
Well, and this is super speedway racing. This is definitely a specific breed of oval racing for sure. And looks like the 60 is starting to get a little bit more aggressive with the push out front. He saw that top lane getting a little bit of momentum, and he said, all right, well, you know what, I can get hooked up pretty good too here, and pushed Emerson Arden out to a pretty healthy lead. Once again paired up, and see, I think it's the 64 back there. Thomas Stewart a little nervous on that top lane and really breaks up that organization. Now we're going to see Scott Ricard probably fall back those positions again. Looks like this front
Everyone
pack,
just abandoned him on the bottom there.
Yep, it looks like the 60 worked his way around Emerson Arden there, and gonna see hard into the wall. Here's a big wreck off at turn 4. This is gonna take out a lot of players, and still green flag on the racetrack because they haven't drifted up onto the racing lane. There is the yellow flag for the first, what I would call, big one of the day. Chris got this replay here.
Yeah, they all abandoned the number 57 down there, and he fell back, and then they were probably just riding on the high a little bit, maybe a little hot coming out of the corner, and then just lost it. Just lost control and then collected a bunch of other people.
Well, it was a push from the 28 of Brady Wagner that ended up getting 60 out of shape here. Right on board with Aaron Brown, because this is another great job of accident avoidance. We saw him avoid a wreck earlier. You're gonna see just a whole bunch of wrecked cars and smoke in front, and somehow this car makes it through. Little bit of contact, but
and then on the grass, which is nerve-wracking no matter where you hit grass in this game. A little drifting action back on. Oh, maybe.
A little bit more eventful than what I thought getting
roads?
back out onto the racetrack. And
we don't need roads.
yeah, but pretty good job of saving the car there, and gonna see real fast about these cars coming down pit road. And I know as soon as we see these cars come down pit road, we're gonna take a quick commercial break and be back with the restart here, because we're gonna be working lap 50 to go, which means, Chris, we've made it 3/4 of the way through this race, which is pretty impressive. I know that we've had a handful of yellows, well, more than a handful of yellows, but we are chugging along.
We are, and that is number 1 out of my quote 3.
Ah, yes. If we're gonna do it for Dale, we need 2 more yellows, and looks like we got the 28 leading these cars down pit road. And sure enough, it seems like all of the lead lap cars are gonna take this opportunity, even after doing just about 10 laps on the racetrack. And with that, all these cars are going to hit pit road, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. Be right back with more racing action.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need, Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Maconi Entertainment. You're watching the SimRacers for Mental Health 500 event here at Daytona International Speedway. And we have officially passed the 3/4 of the way through this very long 500-mile race. And if you're looking to learn more about this race, go ahead and join the SimRacers for Mental Health Discord and Facebook page. Learn more about the racing that they do and the great cause that they race for, as well as this broadcast here. If you're interested in getting your own show on the screen here, go on over to MaconiSetupShop.com. Click on the tab up top that says Maconi Entertainment and fill out the information there. Jeff will get back to you on what we can do to get your iRacing event, series, league, whatever you want broadcasted here with the full commentary booth. Get your action out on the screen, so that way Chris and I up here can make fun of you all. No, I'm just kidding. We wouldn't do that.
Only if you give us cause to, right?
Right, yeah. Well, the pace car lights are out. He is down onto pit road, and Emerson Arden has Barney the Flagman in his sights. He's on the gas, and we're green flag racing back here at Daytona International Speedway. It's the 28 of Brady Wagner outside, and then you got the 64 of Thomas Stewart down below in the second place position. 66 of Brian Keita and Spencer Torrance currently round out your top 5 positions, and looks to be kind of like a little bit of a 3-car breakaway and then 2x2 after that, Chris.
Yeah, pretty common for what we see with starts as of late.
Yellow flag on the racetrack. Got some cars turned around. That's Aaron Brown. Oh no, heavy contact with Aaron Brown, one of our front runners consistently through the race, having some damage now, heavy damage on this 18 on screen, 35 on time and scoring.
Yeah, he's been able to successfully avoid contact for the most part on a lot of crashes, and then this one, I guess his luck has run out for the at least up to this point in the race, and then yeah, big contact right there on the front side.
Yeah, and you see, I believe this all started with a 3-wide moment way up in front of Aaron Brown. We're going to ride on board here with Thomas Frisch. See from his point of view. Oh boy. Not a whole lot of places to go. wisely picks the right route until he's got a lap full of M&Ms.
There is that moment that we talked about earlier in the race where he's like, okay, I think I made it. I think I got it. And then all of a sudden, just you see off in your peripheral vision that a car is coming your way. And you're like, there's nothing I can do.
47, man, and now they're wrecking. 32 just came piling in. I don't think it's the 32. It's actually the 92 on timing and scoring just came piling in. The field was stacked up and came in and bumped a few people there, but all still good. Looks like maybe the back half of the field here is going to take this opportunity to come down pit road, and I don't blame them here. This is what I'm talking about.
What is it?
So, yeah, this was the 92 Drew Bernardi. I think he's trying to get his lap back, but he's not paying attention to the cars in front of him, and he realizes everybody stopped and got to get it checked up. And when you are the car that is multiple laps down, you are the one that has to be careful and not cause damage out there.
Yeah, that was a mistake there. He did pass the flickering car, so maybe it was I looked up in my rear view mirror to see how much he was flickering, and then you look back down onto, where you should be looking going forward, and you just don't have enough reaction time to be able to correct. Just taking your eyes off the road for that split second can get you to kiss the back end of the car in front of you if they put the brakes on.
I believe the Urban Dictionary term is called the ARCA brakes for that one. When people forget that they have the brakes and go piling in on that. And, well, looks like I'm checking timing and scoring here. The top 12 cars stayed out on the racetrack. Don't blame them because they're only working lap 4 or 5 of this fuel stint here, so they haven't really lost anything. It's only the cars 13th on back that came down to pit road for those fresh sets of tires and top up the tank, and it's getting closer and closer to that pit window, Chris, that I mentioned. They can make it about 40 laps on green flag running. Now with 45 laps to go, if we have a lot of yellow flag, these cars that just pitted could potentially make it, but it's definitely a roll of the dice.
That's a difficult choice right there. If you go off of the consistency of the yellow flags that we've been having, you're banking on the fact that you'll probably have another opportunity to come into the pits and adjust things, but hopefully that doesn't happen. We are on number 2 of my quoted 3, and at this point I would say, you know what, let's just keep it there. Let's make me wrong and not hit 3. I would be fine with that.
Yeah, and you did do it for Dale, and we are here at Daytona, so we're gonna see if the spirit of the number 3 rises from turn number 4 over here and looks over this field of racers, and we get that green flag run that we're looking for, and everybody stays safe and sound out there as pace car lights are out. And that means Emerson Arden, once again, I have said his name quite a bit. He's going to be leading this field back to the green flag that Barney has in his hands, and late jump from the 57 car, but we are green flag racing. Huge jump way back in line from Aaron Brown. I believe he's on the apron trying to pass cars, which I'm not sure if that's allowed. And 64, Thomas Stewart is the first car in the top groove, but he doesn't really have a whole lot of help. He's only got the 71 of Creedon Carter behind him, and you see the momentum just is not there. Look at that bottom lane go.
Yeah, this is another incident where, the top lane, they want to get something together, but they just can't really form up and do it the correct way. There's also a lot of there's a lot of mental games that are being played right now with so many yellows, so frequently and in succession like this. It's a test of your patience. You know, you do get frustrated when you don't even get a whole lap in and you're like, oh, we gotta slow down again. So we're getting to a point now where there's probably a little bit of frustration out there on the track, as well as, you know, we've been racing for quite some time now. Maybe a little fatigue in there, tiredness, depending on time zone. You know, there's a lot of things that can be contributing to these yellows at this point.
When Brian Keita gets up there, gives a shove to the 57 up front, kind of extends that lead a little bit. But I tell you what, the top 4 cars in the bottom lane are not hooked up at all. There's a lot of gap between each one of those cars. And what that means is, look at this top groove. The 64 of Thomas Stewart is taking that momentum because the 71 is able to push better, closer. They're more organized. And here we see the top groove taking the lead away from Emerson Arden, and he can't do anything about it because he's got no help behind him.
Yep, that top is gonna swoop down on him, and I'm actually kind of surprised. The connection issues must be only on our end, because it doesn't seem that the blinking car is really affecting the effectiveness of the top up to this point. So hopefully on the track they see a consistent car rolling around with them.
Well, it is consistently the same car that is blinking. It's the 44 of Caleb Carter. He was the one that was blinking on that restart before, and he is the 3rd car in line up top. And so definitely nervous times for any cars behind him, but some really sketchy pushing going on at the front. I believe that's the 90 of Ken Zeems pushing Creighton Carter, and almost had a car get turned around there in turn 2. Here you see that blinking going on. This is that 44 that just consistently disappears off of the screen. And yeah, this is it's tough to
the aerodynamic benefits don't disappear as well. So hopefully we're still getting some good drafting and some good effectiveness up there.
And Ken Zeems, once again, super aggressive. It really came down on Thomas Stewart there. Wasn't clear. Kind of bullied his way down, and then really got clear. And now he's pushing Creighton Carter up front here. I would definitely consider the 90 a little bit of a wild card from what I've seen those last couple laps here, but now they're formed up single file out front for the first, call it 6 cars. Then we've got our blinker, Caleb Carter, the first car in that top groove.
Interesting. We're 40 to go now, so we're getting to that golden mark of gas strategy if there was no more yellows. So we did have a lot of the cars already go in, so nobody should have enough gas to finish out the race at this point. But do you wait for a yellow, or do you make a strategic move and duck in?
Well, don't say that, because some of these cars that are a little bit further back could definitely make it on fuel if we have yellow flags. Because remember, we make a lot better fuel economy under yellow flag than we do under green flag. But if we stay green flag conditions, you are right. All of these cars are definitely going to have to come down pit road at least one more time. And I think if we see multiple yellows, we could see cars come down actually a couple times. However, if you ask me, just get enough fuel to finish the race, and then track position is more important than the fresh tires. And it's still Creighton Carter out front. Ken Zeems there in the 2nd place position. Thomas Stewart, and then Philip Resch and Emerson Arden all in the top 5. Philip Resch is the 83. He's the first car on the top side of the racetrack. trying to make a go of it way out front in that top groove, and looks like he's got a little bit of help there behind him in the form of, I believe that might be Alexander Pelican, and then also Ken Zeems. I'm getting a little confused because the cards that we see on timing and scoring aren't necessarily matching up with some of the numbers that we see, so I'm just trying to work out all the names that are up front.
Seems like we have another relatively organized top lane going at it again.
And that is Tyler Graff. That's why I'm confused right now. Is Tyler Graff, who's actually leading this race in the 98, is a couple laps down, one lap down all the way back there in the 24th position. So I was trying to figure out exactly what's going on in time and scoring, but now we've got the 31 Alexander Pelican. He is truly your race leader, and then you have Emerson Arden outside in the 57 for second place. Here we're riding on board with Adam Jocelyn, the 38. He's jostling for position right now. I know that was a pretty good knee slapper if you ask me, but he's just kind of hanging out in the back. This is actually a really good view, Chris, of how busy things can get kind of in front of you when it's too wide racing.
A lot to pay attention to, and it's no surprise that, you know, if there's a little bit of movement in your periphery, you do one of those big avoiding moves, and it kind of almost looks like you overreacted at times, but, you know, when you're going 190 and you're a couple feet away from the car in front of you and the car next to you, yeah, that gets a little nerve-wracking.
Well, I tell you what, Alexander Pelican and Tyler Graff had a very close moment on the back straightaway. Pelican was below the yellow line and kind of came up and almost got turned over the front end of Graff's car. And see the 51 of Curtis Yancey make an aggressive move to get down to the bottom side of this racetrack. And here we see the familiar face of Aaron Brown in the 35 car start to make his way towards the front as well, but Emerson Arden in the 57 now pushing the leader Philip Resch in the 83.
A lot of back and forth motion between the top and the bottom going on there. Nice to see, but dangerous for the yellow flags.
Can be, and working 33 laps to go now. We were just riding on board with Aaron Brown as we were seeing how busy it really was working your way up through this pack, and he's doing a very good job of doing that. And Philip Resch, Emerson Arden, Thomas Stewart, your top three, Alexander Pelican and Curtis Yancey there inside the top five. And the top two hooked up pretty good, pushing their way out front. The 57 giving a big shove to the 83 down the back straightaway.
Yeah, we're starting to get into single line racing with the exception of the two that are out there at the top, and it's just, I wonder if there's a little bit of, okay, I want to get this race done. Let's kind of line up and just knock out some of these laps. I know we're getting to the end. There is that mental fatigue of like how many yellows can we really stomach at this point, you know?
Well, if we're going to do it for Dale, don't we have one more left? Is that what we're on?
We do. We have one more for the quoted three.
Well, and Aaron Brown making an aggressive move to the top side, trying to ride this draft train going 3 wide through the middle of that lap car there. Now, he's kind of the third car in this line up top, and now he's going to move back down low. Aaron Brown definitely making some more aggressive moves through the traffic to work his way up towards the front, but if you ask me, it seems to be working. Remember, he was involved in a couple of those wrecks, escaped the first few, had a little bit of nose damage on one, and then had the heavy damage on one of the more recent yellows, but doesn't seem to slow down his pace one bit.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to really have impacted his race at all in not only car performance, but just general bravery and trying to make the moves that he needs to do to move up the leaderboard.
This is the first time we've seen 4 cars break away up front, but immediately once you see Aaron Brown clear that outside car, he gets sucked up pretty good inside of this slipstream that we've got here. And now I think we're gonna have, let's see, about 8 cars lined up nose to tail in this front pack. A little bit of a break, and then you see another 10 cars or so kind of forming up a second group. Call it about 10 car lengths back or so.
Yeah, definitely have some separation now. It seems like the field's split in 2, pretty consistent now. Wonder what's going on in the minds of the drivers for strategy on fuel.
Well, talk to me about that, Chris. So let's say you are sitting there in the lead of this race, or let's say you're in Cretan Carter's position right here. We're right on board with him in the 71. And you're looking at your fuel gauge. You realize that you are short by about 10 laps. What is your plan?
Well, first off, you're probably sitting there hoping that other people are in a very, very similar situation, and that you hear or see people start to dip into the pits so that you can just follow along with them and not really lose all much. But, you know, there is that little piece in your mind that's probably going, what if I'm one of the only ones that you can't know anyone else on the track's situation unless you're in comms with them, but I don't think that would be something that would be communicated to competing drivers over the car. But yeah, at this point you're just hoping and praying that everyone else needs fuel as well, and you can just follow the train on in and to strategize independently.
This is looking back, Emerson Arden giving a nice big shove to our leader, Philip Resch, as they go down off into turn 3. Lap car moving up the racetrack wisely, letting all of these lead lap cars duck right underneath them. We saw when the lead lap car made the cars go wide, we had issues off of turn 4 there, but no such thing this time around. Another lap clicked off, and working at 27 laps to go now out of this 500-mile event, and very, very proud of these competitors. As just as I say that, Emerson Arden goes down on the apron. But I was going to say very, very proud at how organized they are and how clean the racing is.
Generally speaking, it has been a very, very clean race. I mean, you're gonna have incidents. It's impossible to go 500 miles without having some kind of problem happen every once in a while. But generally speaking, yeah, I'd agree with you right now. We're definitely proud of what's going on here with the racecraft and everything like that, and it's going rather well.
However, 26 laps is plenty of time to really throw a good wrench in the mix. So we'll just have to see how it all goes. But right now, things are definitely staying calm. I like what I'm seeing, and it's definitely one thing that's on the minds of the racers is what we just talked about with you, Chris, is the pit stop that's going to be coming up. If it stays green flag racing, all these cars are definitely going to have to come down to pit road. And in fact, you know, they're about halfway through their current fuel stint. Just judging off of it, I don't think that they're going to be able to make it from here. I would have to assume, even if we have a ton of yellow to close this thing out, they're probably all going to have to come in at least one more time.
Yeah, I'm on the same page there. I believe that at least one more, either forced by yellow or optionally taken, is going to have to happen here.
And I shouldn't say at least one more time, but they will stop one more time. The only reason to stop more than that is if you got damage from a wreck and have to come down and get it fixed.
Why?
And just as we say that, the 71 and 98 go around on the racetrack. It's Creed and Carter. That was the 98. That was a lapped car of Tyler Graff, as well as this is the 28 Brady Wagner, I believe that was. I think it all kicked off with the 71 though, Chris.
Yeah, I think the 71 nipped the wall a little bit, maybe? Let's see what happens here.
Well, it looks like the 98. So we got to remember the 98 is a lapped car. 98's a lapped car. See if he gives them a bad shove. No, just a 71. 71 gets loose all by his own and spins it around. Unfortunate break for the 98 there who was involved. He was trying to get his lap back, and not the first time we've seen the cars get pretty loose.
Yeah, coming off that transition there, you know, car probably gets a little light, and that's all that happens right there. Just a little too heavy on the gas or on the steering, and there goes the back end. Well, here's that stop that we were talking about, and here's also yellow number 3 in my quoted 3.
Yes, yellow number 3, and this is, you're right, that opportunity for all of the drivers to come down pit road here, fill it on up with gas, because you know from here you can make it to the end guaranteed, even with those yellows. And you see 83 Philip Resch there. Stop on his marks, does a good job here. The rest of the players also stopping on their marks here. I'm curious to see which car gets out of pit road first, and looks like it's going to be the 57 of Emerson Arden, followed by the 64 of Thomas Stewart leading their way out. So we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with the restart of this one.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to the SimRacers for Mental Health Daytona 500, broadcasted here on Maconi Entertainment. If you want to know more about SimRacers for Mental Health, go join their Discord and Facebook page. Learn more about these special events that they put on and the racing that they do for a great cause. Now, Briss, real fast before we get back to this green flag racing, we got Emerson Arden out front. Pull out the crystal ball. You've had your 3 yellows already. Who is your likely pick for race winner?
I think Arden might actually pull it out, but there's a big part of me that's kind of rooting for Brown at this point with the close calls, the avoidances, the struggles with the top lane, and generally racing pretty well today. I kind of want him to get up from that 5th place that he's sitting in right now and take it back.
You've got a green flag on the racetrack, and we're going to see if Aaron Brown is able to work his way back up towards the front there and claim victory lane for himself like you are calling, Chris. And going to have to wait 21 more laps or more, depending on the green-white-checkers, if we have those late race yellows. But right now, it's Emerson Arden getting pushed by the 86 of Brian Young. Aaron Brown jumps out to that high side to try to carry that momentum. Doesn't have a whole lot of help there from the 64 of Thomas Stewart that he needs that organization to pull up. And here comes Adam Jocelyn to that outside lane. That's right, I've made that joke twice now. He's going to take the lead here in the 38. New leader, Adam Jocelyn.
You have to wonder if Brown's notebook is out with the 200 laps of practice that we were talking about earlier, and he's checking his notes going, wait, what do I have to do? How do I get this pass committed? Because it looks like he's trying for that upper side again, which has not been friendly to him at all this race.
Well, and he's in the lead of that upper groove, and you're right that if you go up there, you got to make sure that either people follow you up there so you keep the momentum train going, or you can count on the cars to pick you up, if you will. And it just doesn't seem like the 64 of Thomas Stewart is there yet. He's moving around quite a bit, trying to get organized on the back of Aaron Brown, but just isn't able to get hooked up in that train.
Man, falling back now, we're 5 cars back, almost 6 again, so it doesn't seem like it's going to work at this point. But do you stay up there and just keep being persistent at it and hope that it reforms itself, or do you duck back down in? That's a hard choice.
Well, I think if you're asking me if you're in Aaron Brown's perspective right now, the best thing possible just happened to you with the 83 of Philip Resch jumping up to join you in that top lane. Now, if we remember, the 83 was one of our leaders, so we know that he's confident in being out front right now, and it's up to Aaron Brown to get up there and push the 83 and see what kind of organization he can do. As you see him get paired up on the back bumper of the 83, and now that they're paired up, they're going to make some really good ground inside the back of the fuel cell of the 83. That's how close we were. Now the 35 of Aaron Brown is just going to have to patiently wait on the turns there of 3 and 4, and now he's got to try to get paired back up with the 83. But Chris, this is what I'm talking about. If you can have the organization, it can definitely help propel you to the front. But even then, some cars are starting to look a little light on their feet out there and moving around a little bit.
They really are. And this top lane right now is kind of interesting because, like right now, pushed forward a little bit, and so there's that glimmer of hope that it's working. And then when it comes around the turns, you fall back again, and you're like, well, maybe it's not working. But at what point do you give up? Do you stay up there because it's really almost the only thing you can do at this point because you can't dip back down? So it's a hard choice right now, and it looks like right now, it looks like it's working.
Yeah, and saw Adam Jocelyn go up to the top lane and then cut back down to the bottom lane, try to control both grooves. And
look at that.
In real life racing, we see that work quite a bit. Oh no, Thomas Stewart just door banged Adam Jocelyn right there. Thankfully, he finally realized there's a car underneath him. But Here in the sim, we don't see one car be able to dictate both lines very often. It can be pretty tough to do, and I just don't think the aerodynamic model is there to work that way. And here we see Aaron Brown. He's worked his way back to that familiar spot. He is in the lead down low. It's taken him a long time to get there, but here we see the M&M's car fighting for the lead with Philip Resch too wide through the tri-oval. 15 laps to go.
There's some sketchy swerving back and forth happening at this moment.
Here we see the 64 of Thomas Stewart take away that bottom lane lead from Aaron Brown. And yeah, just the cars. And see, yeah, Thomas Stewart was not in the single lower lane there, and he got shoved out of the way. And now we have all sorts of cars just kind of all over the place as Philip Resch still is in the lead out front, leading that top lane.
That was an absolute flip-flop of the leading cars there. That was a lot of changing.
And here is another name that went all the way to the back, but has found himself back up front. Chad Mikos in the 25 car being pushed by Aaron Brown. Now you got Adam Jocelyn, who is clear of the lower lane. All three are going to move down low. Pretty close call there. I don't think Philip Resch appreciated that, but those three were definitely clear. Now Adam Jocelyn goes up to the top side. Philip Resch down below, making this lower groove, try to have that speed, but Emerson Arden giving the push to Adam Jocelyn up top. And here we see Aaron Brown make his move out to the outside one more time, try to clear those cars, and he is able to get down below in front of the 25, but Jocelyn did not give him any help, and now the leader is the 38 of Adam Jocelyn.
I think we've surpassed that moment where the friendliness has gone away.
Yes, friendliness has definitely gone away, and I'm a little worried for the safety of this 38 car, because if he keeps changing lanes, I have a feeling that one of these lane changes is not going to work out well for him. And good to see him stick to the top of the racetrack, but big moment from the 57 of Emerson Arden. I tell you what, Chris, these cars look loose.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of swerving happening now that we just didn't see at the beginning of the race.
Lots of yaw angle in the cars indeed, as side by side, 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, all the way back. I'm seeing 8 rows deep. These cars are racing 2 by 2, all because we're seeing 12 laps to go. These laps are starting to dwindle down. The time is now to start making those pushes.
This is difficult right now. Friendliness is out the window. It's everyone's cutting each other off and coming real close to the fenders, and the lead keeps changing, and what lane you're driving in keeps changing. It's just, this is where the racing gets exciting, because now there's no more long game here. This is, I want the win.
Indeed, and we just saw that Emerson Arden, he was kind of in that 4th or 5th place position. Now he's worked his way all the way up to the lead, gets a big shove from Aaron Brown going down the back straightaway. You see all these cars kind of jockeying for position. Aaron Brown looking through the middle, but there's nowhere to go there, and I would highly advise against trying to go to the middle at this point. You're just gonna sink like a rock.
Yeah, this is tough. There's a move somewhere in here in the near future. It's just everyone's swerving so much that trying to go through the middle is too dangerous at this point. You could take out your whole entire race in the 10 laps here.
Well, there's definitely 3 lanes, potentially even 4, and here's Jocelyn finally gets turned out of the lead there, and I believe that was Blake Trawick who turned him over the bumper there. And Not exactly sure if that was a lane change out of the leader or not, but definitely just a push, and that can happen when the cars aren't hooked up as you want. Just a push in the wrong spot can send a car around.
There's a lot of contact happening, and with the swerving, you know, it's going to be less and less likely that you're going to hit that perfect spot back there. So it's dangerous up there.
Yeah, Adam Jocelyn, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, but he just went back right up onto the racetrack in front of a car and took out the 71 of Cretan Carter. Just really unfortunate for the 71 out there to do so many laps and unfortunately have the race kind of slip away like that. But out front, still Emerson Arden and Aaron Brown side by side, battling it out for the lead. And hey, look at this, Aaron Brown's got the top lane working.
He's been trying to organize them for basically the entire race, and it seems to be actually helping him in these last, I guess it's been 20 laps or so now that it's been working pretty well for him.
Emerson Arden has 3 cars lined up underneath. I see Philip Rush. Does he try to make the top lane work? He is. Gonna try to get paired up here. Now, which way does he go? He decides to go outside. Wow, really close clearance between Aaron Brown and the 56 of Blake Trawick right there. Just barely got his car in front. And once again, lots of slippery yaw angles coming out of this top groove. And there's Aaron Brown loses it. And here's cars turned around. This is going to be the yellow flag on the racetrack. Once again, Aaron Brown with a big loose moment all by himself collects a bunch of cars.
Just pushing just a little bit too far out of the ability zone, if you will, for this stage of the race, and it just got away from him.
Yeah, it's the car, you know, the tire wear, and when you're going that fast, you know, the air is doing a lot of funky stuff, so you're just trying to hang on to what you can, and it's not like your regular road course car where the car is loaded up easily through there, so you really have to manage what the car is doing, and you see it.
Did he get a little tap on one of those swerves?
Nope. He just lost it all by himself, a big tank slapper and up into the wall and collected it around.
Well, that makes it 4.
4 indeed, but not enough to trigger our first green-white checker, I believe. So I think we should be able to go back racing, and if we have a yellow flag immediately, then we'll get our green-white checkered attempts. But I don't think that they're going to be quite yet with this 7 laps to go. We should be going racing probably with 4 or 5 laps to go, I would say, Chris.
So at this point, how many people that were in that wreck just there still have their quick repair?
Well, probably not very many. Now, we started the day with 41 cars out on the racetrack, and from what I see, looks like we got about 25, 26 cars out there. So we've had a lot of retirements, and I'm looking down the order. I think it's all the way down to 19 cars. No, not even. 18 cars look to be on the lead lap currently. Well, and the 83 of Philip Resch, current leader, Chad Mikos in 25th spot. Now, Chris, I'm going to test your knowledge a little bit. You remember where Chad Mikos was running there? He was up front for a little while.
He was up front for a little while. Where did he start? Was he one of the ones we were talking about that moved very far up the field?
No, Chad was one of our early front runners, and he was battling it out up there for quite a while in that number 25 car, and then got shuffled back further down the pack about halfway through the race, and just recently has moved his way back up inside the top 5 here and got that number 25 car in a really good position to potentially take home the victory here.
Yeah, where is my quoted? So Aaron's down at 11. So depending on if the top line is fruitful for him, it'll be a tough fight for my prediction to come true. And then Arden, which was the leader, which was another option for me, is now down at 16th. So if any of my crystal ball predictions are gonna work out for me today, it would be a hard fight.
Well, if I'm gonna give a guess, I'm actually gonna go, and not because I used to race this number, but I'm gonna go with the number 51 of Curtis Yancey. Yeah. I don't know why, but Curtis has just kind of dropped like a stone, fought his way back up to the front a couple times, and he seems like he can pull off some moves when the time counts, and that's exactly what it takes to win here at Daytona. So I've got my eye here on the number 51, as you see. Currently 4th, highest he has led the race, but he has fallen all the way back there to 23rd. See what that 51 can do here, given 4 laps to go for this restart.
4 laps. That is not a lot. Not at all. So you have to make your move and make it stick.
Here comes the safety car down pit road. Philip Resch already on the gas in that 83 car, gets a pretty good jump. Moves to the outside lane, which has some momentum, and you see Chad Miko say, okay, I'll take the momentum straight down to the bottom, and the 51 of Curtis Yancey follows suit. Those two are going to go straight out to the front. Now the 83 finally has help, but it's a little bit too little too late. And see if Isaiah Dupree in the 23 can push the 83 out front. But right now, Chad Mikos, Curtis Yancey really dominating this restart.
Yeah, there's a small gap there. Don't think it's big enough to really matter all that much at this point, but they did take a lot of momentum out front there. Now we're getting it compacted up again.
3 wide off of turn 4 here. Things are starting to get busy. Aaron Brown now making it 3 wide, going into turn 1. He's all the way up top, but it's Chad Mikos being pushed by Brian Young right now. Ken Zeems, the 3rd car in line, and we're wrecking off of turn 2. Staying green on the racetrack right now. There's the yellow flag. 3 laps to go. There's a handful of cars involved in this one, and we will get our first green-white checkered attempt. But first, catch some of these replays, Chris.
I didn't catch where it originated. Where did this wreck start? 64 clipped number 10.
64, there's Thomas Stewart.
Ooh.
10 is Spencer Torrance. Yeah, 3 wide there in the middle.
Yeah, paying attention to the sides.
Looks like, and then it looked like the number 10 there was kind of out of place, and then 3 wide behind him just kind of ran him over. And unfortunately collected quite a few cars in that one.
Yeah, I don't necessarily put any fault on the driver that connected with 10. I forget the number already. Just because, you know, you're 3 wide, you're trying to pay attention as much as you can to what's going on to your right. So your attention is kind of split between what's in front of you, what's beside you. It's almost impossible to be able to navigate that situation perfectly. And then with the 10 slowdown, you know, unfortunately, you're going to get into a little bit of a spat there just because of the situation.
Well, this will bring up our first green-white-checkered attempt here, Chris. Now, we mentioned you come from the road racing world. This is a spectacle here in the oval world. Now, instead of ending the race under a yellow flag condition here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to overtime. When we go back racing, we're going to have one lap of green flag, then we're going to get the white flag, and then we're going to get the checkered flag. Now, it is important to note that if we get a yellow flag before the leaders reach the white flag, we'll do it all over again for 3 attempts. Now, if the yellow flag comes out after the white flag comes out, the race is essentially over, the checkered flag will fly, and we will know our winner. So that is the rules here of the green-white-checkered attempts.
Interesting situation. Let's see. Wait, let's make sure my board is refreshed here. How's your 51 doing? Okay, so I'm seeing 3rd place there for 51, so your prediction could still happen.
Yeah, Curtis Yancey's looking like he's in a good spot, and even for this restart right now, I think he's in a pretty gosh dang good spot because he's down low, 2nd car in lane, which means he's going to get the great jump with the leader on the restart, and he's just got to be able to stay hooked up and provide that push to Chad Mikos, and that's what's really needed on this restart, if you ask me.
Everything forming up here. This is for all of the beans, as they say.
Now we get the lights out on the pace car. Going to be going to 1 lap to go before we get the green flag here, and let's count them up. I see now 19 cars on the lead lap. Last car on the lead lap is Scott Ricard in the 05 machine, and let's see, who is our biggest gainer right now? I see Blake Trawick, number 56, up 29 positions. Originally started way back there in the 36th spot. Currently looking pretty good, potentially even in consideration for a top 5 right now.
That's a wonderful performance there.
Very good performance out of the number 56. You see him on screen here. He's going to be lining up on the outside. 4th car in line. Moo! Indeed. Look at those udders on the back of that thing.
I like myself a creative sim racing livery. You know, we're not in the world of corporate sponsors and things. Make them a little bit of fun, you know?
Yeah, it certainly can be. And here we go, Chris. We got the pace car coming out of Speedway, turn number 4. Gonna be up to Chad Mikos in that low lane to decide when he wants to go. We've seen leaders go early. We've seen leaders go late. But it's most importantly to get hooked up immediately on this restart, as Ken Zeems really tried to jump the restart and didn't work out for him in that top lane. And Chad Mikos way out front by himself. This is not going to work out, as we see the top lane. Ken Zeems now going to fake him out. Chad Mikos has got no friends, and he's going to get swallowed up by the pack. Curtis Yancey now gets to his back bumper, and Ken Zeems, that's what I was afraid of. Zeems was not clear, and looks like we're going to have another yellow flag on the racetrack for green-white-checkered attempt number 2.
Well, they missed their do it for Dale 3 on the yellow flag, so maybe they're for the checkered.
Well, here we see Zeems out front, and he just was not clear. He tried to clear himself down low, and you see, there was a car there, couldn't go down, and he tried to force his way down, and unfortunately, he learned the hard way of got to make sure it's clear. Gonna ride on board David Grantham here. The 60 took a big hit, and I actually think this car ended up upside down, Ricky Bobby flying through the air.
He climbs up the hood right there. Gets another nudge from another buddy, and here we go.
Lands back on the wheels, though. All good if you ask me. Grab the gear, get it back going again, and off to green-white-checkered attempt number 2, Chris.
This is where, it's all sense of friendliness is out the window right there. Because, a little brake tap could have happened there, and the whole wreck would have been avoided. But
oh, no. Because if you check up in the lower lane, everybody's going to run over from behind you.
Yeah,
you got to make sure.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you're clear if you're going to make those moves for sure. And I know it's rough to say it, but you turn yourself over the front if that's the situation.
It almost looked like there was a bit of hesitation, almost as if he kind of felt like he didn't have the space, but committed and did it anyways, and then it ultimately didn't end well, obviously.
Yeah. Certainly, that seems to be how it worked out there. Looks like we're getting a few more cars that wave around right now, and then I believe in next lap we should be getting the lights out on the pace car to get one more lap to go before we get back going green flag racing. And mentioned it, this is just green-white-checkered attempt number 2. If we have another wreck like what we just saw, we can get a whole another third attempt at this, and then during the third attempt, if that happens, the yellow flag will end the race.
Let's hope that this one we can get a good battle going and finish this one out.
Interesting to note, our top 2 runners now, Isaiah Dupree, the number 23 car, haven't mentioned him much at all today, and then also Tyler Graff, the number 98. Now, if we remember Tyler Graff from earlier, he was that lap down car that was mixing it up with the lead lap cars, and now he has fought his way back on the lead lap, finds himself in the second place position with a really good opportunity here on this green-white-checkered attempt to potentially steal away a victory and claim that top spot.
It's so interesting that throughout all of these 200 laps, it obviously mattered, but it's almost like the only thing that mattered for this specific race is like the last 5 here. There's been so many lead changes and so many placement changes that the overall race didn't really predict anything.
Lots of times with the Daytona 500 and super speedway racing, it's not about where you start. It's about staying out of the mess. And, given that these cars had one fast repair, it gives them a little bit more opportunity out there to keep in the race, if you will. Another one that I saw that was a lap down recently, Scott Ricard, all the way back up into the 8th place position. And looks like still got 19 cars on the lead lap. The number 60 of David Grantham is going to be your last car. See, this is the shot from Scott Ricard in the 05, lining up on the outside, about 4 rows back. And gonna see what Isaiah Dupree in the number 83 chooses to do on this restart. I mentioned some go early, some go late, but it's all about getting paired up. It's the most important part, is actually have a little bit of blinking from Isaiah. Hopefully that doesn't continue, and he is now on the gas. Number 98 actually gets a really good restart and immediately jumps down into that lower groove. See Aaron Brown try to test this high side again. He's going to try to go and push the 56 of Blake Trawick, but it is currently Isaiah Dupree being pushed by Tyler Graff right now. There are two cars really stretching it out in front of the pack.
Can that top work out for them?
Here comes Aaron Brown. He's going to make it 3 wide down underneath. He separates himself from the 56 of Blake Trawick. Now he's going to go to the outside around Isaiah Dupree, but here comes a big shove from behind. The 23 now has the momentum. It's 2 by 2 for 10 rows deep, getting the white flag from Barney. We got 1 lap to go. Isaiah Dupree in the catbird seat right now. Tyler Graff giving the big shove, and there's my player, Curtis Yancey, in the 51. Oh no, we got a problem on the racetrack there. This is going to give the race to Isaiah Dupree in the 23. We have the big one going on behind. It stays green flag on the racetrack, and honestly, this might give an opportunity to Brian Young right now, because I don't see a yellow flag on the racetrack. They're still racing back to the green flag. No, they are off of the gas. And it's going to be Isaiah Dupree in the number 23 car taking the win here at Daytona for the Sim Racers for Mental Health 500. Wow, what a finish with a wreck taking out literally the entire field in the number 23. Was clear of it all, taken home, and we will see him down there in victory lane, hopefully with a couple good burnouts, Chris.
That, I can just imagine him looking in his rear view mirror, just screaming because he knows. That's a crazy wreck right there. That was a lot of drama in the end of this race, and I guess I wouldn't expect it to end any other way than how it did, to be honest with you.
And here comes Isaiah Dupree, rightfully down to his spot on start finish here. See if he does a couple big celebratory donuts. He sure enough whips it around into the infield here, getting some burnouts from the number 23. Looks like he might have stalled a little bit of Trevor Bayne action, trying to learn how to do the donuts down here, as makes a little bit of wall contact. But hey, you know what? After 500 miles, any celebration is worth it. And gonna get a quick replay of exactly what happened. Watch the 51 here. He's third car in line down low. This is where it all gets triggered. You see there, the car in front just ends up getting turned off of the bumper of the 51, and then behind him, literally everybody piles in. I don't think anybody made it through there cleanly.
I don't think so either. I think you got everyone.
And we're going to get another shot here of exactly how it all goes down. This is going to be a great shot. It's going to start at the front, funnel upwards, and collect everybody down the racetrack as well. I think the 77 came in hot again. I could be wrong. This is a theme for the 77. It's no brakes through the wreck.
Just full throttle straight through. I'm either making it or going through one. Good grief.
Well, as we get these final couple shots of this replay here as they wind down, we're going to take a quick break and be right back with the official results and any post-race interviews.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You just saw a great ending to the Sim Racers for Mental Health 500 here at Daytona International Speedway, and it was the number 23 of Isaiah Dupree taking home the checkered flag, stealing it, if you will, from all of the rest of the competitors. Here we see the rest of the results. Brian Young finishing second. Ken Zeems, a great run there in third. Brian Keita, fourth place. Blake Trawick, our biggest mover, up 32 positions to claim that top 5 finishing spot. Spencer Torrance, sixth. David Grantham, Aaron Brown, Emerson Arden, and Philip Resch rounding out the top 10 here. 11th spot, we got Scott Ricard, Chad Mikos, Curtis Yancey, Alexander Pelican, Scott Wilkerson, Thomas Frisch, Timothy Groff, Steve Rada, and Tyler Graff, and Caleb Carter rounding out the top 20. And everybody from here on back, 21st, Drew Bernarley, Thomas Stewart, Brady Wagner, they're all several laps down, all the way back down there to the 41 cars that we had enter the race. And we've got our race winner, Isaiah Dupree, standing by here. Congratulations for taking home the checkered flag tonight.
Thank you. Didn't really see that one coming together there, but thanks to Tyler. He gave me a hell of a push there at the end. If he's not with me, I don't win that. But yeah, shocked to get it, but really happy.
Well, a shock indeed. Now, you're not the biggest mover of the race, but you claimed the best position. You went up 22 spots from your starting spot of 23. When did you realize that you had a shot at winning this thing?
Coming to about 20 to go, maybe, when I realized I was still alive in the race. I thought I had a shot just because I was there by proxy. But yeah, once at the end there, I saw Tyler was on the outside with me. We talked about the restart for a bit, and he finally convinced me to go a little bit early there. And then once I saw the field wipeout behind me, that was kind of locked in.
Well, and talk me through that emotion, because it wasn't over until turn 2 there on that white flag lap. So you had to fend off quite a few charges, but did you see the wreck happen in your mirror, or did you look up on the back straight and nobody was there?
Yeah, I glanced at Tyler and I saw him either get loose or he got bumped, and then I saw smoke, and that kind of set in as I was coming off of 2 that no one was behind me.
Yeah, well, and from there, it was pretty clean sailing, and congratulations once again. And before I let you go, is there anybody that you want to say hi to or thank that helps you get it done out there on the racetrack?
Yeah, thanks everybody at Graphics, Tyler, Quincy, Creighton, Matt in there for spot, and yeah, and everybody else in PGRL. And thanks to the hosts and you guys for putting on a great event. Yeah, that was great.
Well, that was Isaiah Dupree, your winner here at the Sim Racers for Mental Health 500 at Daytona. And As we wrap up tonight, we want to thank our broadcast partners here at Maconi Entertainment. Calling the action tonight was myself, Joey Adbury, alongside Chris Hannibal in the booth with Ryan Bauer producing all of the action. As always, we would like to thank all of our viewers for tuning into tonight's racing action. We hope to see you tomorrow night for round 4 of the Drivers' Gauntlet in the ARCA cars at Bristol. Until then, stay tuned to the Maconi Entertainment social media pages for all of the upcoming broadcasts. And of course, a special shout out goes to the entire staff in working and bringing this racing action to you. This has been a production of Maconi Entertainment, and we wish you all a good night.